All right, everyone is signed in. You all have a handout, correct? This is a bit of a cheat sheet. Just in case you get lost, there are a few things in here. For example, a lot of questions about when will our customers be notified? That seems to be a thorny issue, so we spelled that out. Also, as we're making this transition, there are a couple key terms that we're going to be using, some translation between RT and the ServiceNow platform, so we have a few things in there. But there's a much more comprehensive list of all the translation available on our help documentation as well. A couple little tips and tricks on the back, but there are, again, many more online, and some notes for you as well today. Any questions before we get running? Everyone excited about this? I don't sense any nervous energy in the room. Everyone just seems a little bit. Okay, we're all okay. We're just waking up. That's great. Just like our computers, just booting up right now and getting started. So you're welcome to pop this open and make sure you can get to uweval.service-now.com. And I'm going to start with a little bit of an overview here. We're going to start with a few slides, a tiny bit of lecture just to get warmed up, some key concepts and terminology and navigation of the platform. Then we're going to launch into this new call application, learn a little bit of new terminology with our service offerings and assignment groups. Learn a little bit about creating filters and querying, and then we'll take a break. So you guys can reset, ask questions at that time, take a bathroom break down the hall. We'll launch into service requests and incident management, take a break, and then we'll wrap up with a few extra concepts at the end. Any questions about that overall agenda? So you would stop me and say, hey, Jake, I have a question if you did? OK, good. I want to make sure. So just a tiny bit about me before I launch into this as well. I'm not a professional ServiceNow trainer, UW Connect trainer. I'm an instructional technologist, and I'm a UW employee like you, UW IT employee like you. But I'm really interested in the platform, and I'm excited to teach you all about it. So one of our goals in this transition is to transform how we manage our services. And one of the things I've been told a bunch is that we need to align our work with the needs of the business. And that sounded like management speak to me every time I heard it. But today you're going to actually see we're literally going to be linking our records, our service records, to a service offering. So this isn't just management speak. We're going to be literally doing that today. This has involved ITIL training for many of us. How many people have had ITIL Foundations training? So you know a little bit of the terminology. That's great. Also a role for campus governance, and also a role for process owners and things like that. So you might hear about the incident management process. So Mike Houlihan is the owner of that process as opposed to other people just doing things the way they want to. What that means for us is today we'll be talking about the RT replacement with the UW Connect platform. And you'll hear me lapse and say ServiceNow a whole bunch today. That's OK. We're also going to change some of our terminology. Instead of talking about RT tickets, we'll talk about records. But I promise if you refer to things as tickets, I won't scold you. It's absolutely OK to use the RT terminology if you wish. And one of our goals also is to be more transparent with our customers. And when we're going through the customer notification section of that, I think that'll become more apparent to you as well. OK, a little bit of ITIL terminology. We are not going to just talk about tickets anymore. We're going to split all of our records, our incoming records, into requests and incidents. How many people know the difference already and are bored by this? That's good. That's good. Boring is good. So a request would be a standard service with a predefined approval or general assistance. An example would be I need a router or a computer, or I call because I need help logging in. A password reset would actually be a service request. An incident would be an unplanned interruption or outage, even if that hasn't yet impacted our customers. So that would be no internet access or failure of a hard drive. So we're going to split everything into those two types of categories as they come in. I'd like to point out here that if someone needs help logging in, it would be classified as a request. But as you're working that request, you might say, oh, wait, they can't log in because there's an outage. The request would then become an incident. So as we're going through this overall process, keep that in the back of your mind. Pretty much everything's going to come in the front door as a request. And we're going to change them to incidents as necessary. And when we talk about incident management, you'll see why you might want to treat things as an incident as opposed to a request. That make sense? So you have to believe me now, and you'll hear later why. How many people are aware of problem management? It's a new concept for many of us. The general concept here is that when there's an outage, we want to resolve it immediately. Close that record out. But there may be an underlying problem that we need to address in the future. So you want to create a problem record that can be addressed separately outside of the customer sphere. So we'll talk a little bit about creating a problem record from an incident so that an engineering team could evaluate that down the road. It might mean an expensive upgrade or network replacement, something like that. Again, this is a new concept for many of us, and we're just learning how to do it. Knowledge management. How many people currently use RTFM or other knowledge articles to respond to customers? So we've imported all the major sources, RTFM, Router's Reference, and many of the MON help guides into our knowledge base in ServiceNow. So it's searchable and can be usable by everyone when responding to customers. We're not going to talk a lot about creating new content, but we will show you how to use it and how to designate a response to a customer for future knowledge. Yeah, Brian. You can create knowledge articles, but the actual workflow has not been established. So you could create them and use them, but they wouldn't go into the search, if that makes any sense. They have to be published and approved, and that process is being developed. So hopefully in the next few weeks we'll have guides up for that whole thing. Just like RTFM, no one taught me how to use it. I had to figure it out on my own. We'll have help documentation for that. Sound okay? Good. All right. A little bit of demonstration etiquette. Please stop me if I misspeak. You may have already realized that I talk fast, so if I misspeak or confuse you, please stop me and ask me to clarify. What ends up happening in these workshops, though, is people say, hey, wait, in my group, we want to do X, Y, and Z, and they go on these long tangents. So I'll ask you to refrain from asking long tangential questions. Maybe write them down. We can talk during a break and work on workflow. And you might also decide that after this session, you're going to work as a service team and want to engage us again, the training team or support team, to talk about workflow and process. A lot of new concepts, but I'm going to try to avoid a lot of tangents today because we have a packed agenda. Is everyone okay with that? I know it sounds unkind, but I also want to make sure you all learn the tool. Okay, great. So let's go navigate around. Everyone has a browser open, uweval.service-now.com. Logged into UW ID. We all have a screen like this. That's great. Just a note here, we are in eval, so emails don't go out from here. How many people have already kicked the tires a little bit? Attended a session. So you can create records in here. You could assign Kelly as a requester if you wish. I wouldn't recommend it, but emails aren't going to go out, so we can safely practice here. All right. Does everyone have a page somewhat like this? It says home page at the top. What I'm going to do, I'm a little bit prescriptive in that I would love for you to follow along with me. I know there's a natural tendency to click all over the place. Tomorrow would be a great day to go click all over the place. Today, I would advise that you click along with me. That sound okay? I know it can seem a little slow, and you might even get a little bored, but I prefer that personally. Up at the top, I can click on the UW Connect banner, and it's going to load this page again. And if I were not on my home page, I could also click on this Switch to Page menu, and I can see a list of predefined home pages that have been built for us. So if you were on an experiment later on, you can try some of these other home pages. And at the end, we're also going to show you how to edit this home page to make it a custom page for your purposes. In the very top left, we have 4 toggle buttons. You can click on them now. They're going to toggle elements of the screen on and off. For today, I would advise that you keep all 4 of those buttons pale. So if you have a split screen engaged, make sure you toggle those off for today. This is useful in the future for you to experiment with, but for a presentation like this, it can be a little bit disorienting. So everyone had a chance to click and then make sure none of them are on? Excellent. Below that, we have what is called our Power Edge. We have the ability to bookmark elements here for quick access, and I'll show you a little bit about how to do that. And next to that, we have what is called the Application Navigator. We have a really important section here called My Records. Also, I'll show you how to use the Service Desk application. We'll talk about requests, incidents, problems, and all of these things as we go through the whole demo. In the center of your screen, you see a My Work section. How many people have work already? Some people have none. That's good if you have nothing to do. That's wonderful. This is a list of all of the records in the system that have been assigned to you. How many people use RT? So all the records you've taken, these are all those that have been assigned to you. So a slightly different term, same concept, obviously. Below that, we have a list of your group's incidents, incidents, requests, and then tasks below that if you scroll down the screen. These are differentiated for specific reasons, and we'll learn a little bit more about that later. Everyone see something like that? The basics of this is that this is going to show all of the incident records for all of your assignment groups, which is roughly equivalent to all of your RT queues. That makes sense? How many people watch multiple RT queues? So if you're in multiple assignment groups, they're all going to be in one big bucket. If you wish to split them out, you can also do that, but you're going to have to make custom filters for that. That make sense? Excellent.
Can I ask a question, Jake?
Yeah.
So if you click on my work, can you remind me how to get back to that full screen?
Yeah, the UW Connect banner, the logo button at the top left should do it. That'll always refresh it. And it'll also take you back to the last page you were on. So if you're trying other pages, that button will take you back to a different one. And at the very top right of your screen is a tiny little toggle. It actually takes away your Connect logo. I don't find it to be very useful to do that. I like the logo. I like to have a home button there. So just be careful if you've done that. The other thing I didn't show you is our search bar at the top right. You're going to learn that that's your friend. It's a really nice search. How many people have tried and failed to search in RT? I personally have crashed the system many times. You're going to like this a lot. So it's a lot of fun. We're going to get started with what is called the new call application. This is a new concept for a lot of us. How many people are plagued by sticky notes at their desk? I get a call from somebody, or I'm trying to take notes on something. This is a place for quick data capture, and all of these records are your calls. You're going to notice we're going to call people callers, and we're going to refer to calls a little bit today. You can sense the call center origins of this platform. It's kind of irrelevant whether someone's a requester or a caller, but we have to adapt to the new terminology. So you could log things as general inquiry or other, and that's going to be record only for your use. You could also then choose to transfer that record to a request or incident, and this is going to generate a new ticket. So it'd be like clicking a new ticket in RT. And just want to differentiate that if you transfer something to a request or an incident, it's going to create a record and email the customer. And then the assumption is we're going to follow up. We're going to resolve that. So we have two destinations. One would be a dead end for my records, and the other would be to create a new record to communicate with a customer. You okay with that? Great. I'm going to give you a basic overview as well. I swear, not a lot more slides, but this is about as busy a slide as I could possibly create. I just want to point out that we're going to start off with this call record. Someone might call me on the phone or walk in, and I could choose to leave it there. I could transfer it to an incident or request record, and from here, the customer is contacted, generates an email, and we would work that record, resolve it as necessary. We can also make tasks. How many people are familiar with subtickets in here? That's great. So instead of subtickets, we're going to have tasks. So an incident would have an I task, request would have an R task. These are great subtypes because they automatically talk back to the parent and to each other. So if I post notes in here, work notes, they're going to talk back to the parent record and to each other. Same thing with these. But they cannot talk to a customer. So the subtickets in this system are just talking back to the parent record, and this record can then communicate with the customer as needed. Does that make sense? From there, also, we have another destination. We could have separate problem records. And this shouldn't be purple. I apologize. The customer cannot be contacted here either. So we're versioning it for future investigation. I want to highlight that all inbound email to help at you is going to be generating a request. And we would transfer to an incident as necessary. And theoretically, if you had an incident record and you decide, oh, no, this is just a request, you can convert it back down to if you wish. That make sense? Yeah.
When you convert, is the customer contacted?
Customer is not contacted. It's a silent conversion, and it closes out that record and generates a new one. And I've gone back and forth, a request to incident, incident to request. You can do as many times as you want. Kind of silly. Customer is not contacted. And frankly, they don't care, right? If it's an incident or request, they want their problem solved. So it's just for our purposes. There are slightly different processes in the two. Incident has a few more fancy tricks and tips you can use. So that's why you might want to call something an incident as well. Yeah?
Does it bump up the number?
So in theory, we have more records, but this is marked as closed converted. So it wouldn't necessarily show up. If you're going to do true metrics, you would ignore everything that's closed converted. that make sense? In terms of your actual stats. Yeah, it'll close it out. It won't be in your default views. You won't see it. You know, for most of us, out of sight, out of mind. You know, we don't currently see resolved RT tickets, even though they're there. We can if we wish. It'll be similar. It'll be closed, converted, and won't mess us up our stats.
All the email goes to help at UW. How is it getting assigned to individual?
So,
Who's triaging?
yeah, so right now, if it goes in the service center, that man's team right there in the back, that's William. He's going to be helping today if you have problems too. They have routers, and they know where particular issues go. And if you have it set up so it's auto routing to a particular queue right now, you may have it set up so it's auto assigning to your group as well in the new system. Just want to establish that. But there's a team of routers that will assign things. Right now it's kind of evocative. We think of our queues. We think of emails moving around to queues with the routers. In the future, it's going to be a record, and the routers will be assigning them to a group. It's the same concept. It's just a little bit less physical in terms of what goes through your mind. Does that make sense? All right, let's get started. I'm tired of all the slides already. I'm sure you are too. I'd like for all of you to expand the Service Desk application. If you scroll down here, you'll see a lot of things, but the one we're going to talk about right now is called New Call. And if you would grab the New Call icon, you can actually drag it to your Power Edge here. And I have this handy little phone. So I think it's actually pretty cool. And if you want to, you don't have to, but you can click on it. You might be saying right now, Jake, I never get phone calls. I turn my phone off. You still should follow along because I'm going to show you really important things that are going to translate throughout the entire application. So a lot of the behavior is going to be the same. Things you learn here will translate. And you can leave your screen as it is here. I'm going to make this banner go away, make my navigator go away for more real estate for demonstration purposes. All right. So first we have this concept of a caller. Again, instead of a requester, we'll call everyone a caller. And right now you could search for maybe another UW employee that you expect to find in the database. I can do a type ahead. And my net ID is Jake Holstead, and I can see all the entries that are mine or similar. This is going to search on name, first name, last name, net ID, address, and I also have employee ID, alumni ID, student ID, and all that stuff to search against. So it's really powerful. You may say, well, Jake, I'm not finding someone. They're not in the system. I need to add them. What you can then do instead, if you wish to add someone to the system, is click on this search lookup. And that gives me a long list of people. You can see I'm showing 1 to 50 of 26,000 records right now. That's all that's in the system. As a side note, if someone emails help at you, they will automatically be added. This is only a scenario where someone walks in or calls and they're not in our system. You'll have to add them. So I can click on New. Give them a name. First and last name are not required. The only thing that's essential is an email address. So that's going to be the primary key in our database. They have to have an email address. People ask, well, what if they don't have an email address? No, they have to have an email address. So you have to have something to put in there in order to have a record for a person. Make sense? Okay. I'm going to cancel that because I don't want to make other garbage in there. A side note, there are a lot of UW net IDs that haven't been imported. I don't know, the number is something like 1 million. Maybe Brian could correct me, but there are a lot of net IDs out in the wild that aren't in our system. If you put in a UW net ID at uw.edu, that will be reconciled in the system. So their official directory information will be pulled in. Is that okay? Again, hopefully this is a very seldom you would have to do something like that. I'm going to pick on myself a lot today. I have an entry at Yahoo that I put in there. Find something that works for you that you can type in really quickly. I know if I type in JKU, I can get my entry in there quickly. Contact number is optional. It can be one-time information. Short description. Help me. Everything is gone. Deleted Outlook data. So I'll point out the first lie we're going to tell you today. If this isn't always customer visible. Now, obviously, it's best to behave as if everything we do is customer visible. That way you can't get in trouble. I just want to point out, as I had mentioned earlier, that if I make this general inquiry or other, nothing's going to happen with this. It's going to dead end this record. Someone might have a wrong number. I might want to log it. Or they might ask for just something really simple that doesn't need follow-up. I could just make it an other call and end it here. Does that sound okay? I sometimes get emails and I want to log it. I want to log that information in the system or other interactions with customers. So you can actually just log a lot of things in here if you wish. So I'm going to make this an other call. Right there. Excellent. And I'm also going to briefly show you template. So template's a useful feature. I'm going to ask that you explore it on your own. But what it allows you to do is apply values to any of these fields or even adding a description. So if you have common call types or data processing, you can go in and apply templates. I had made one earlier. I called it my new call template, for example. And it can set some values and add data right here. Okay? Yeah. It's a little bit like RTFM. You have a lot of options, actually. You could search knowledge for an answer, but if you have commonly answered questions really quick, you could also have templates for those too. So that would be a lot like RTFM. So you have multiple choices. But if you have 100 templates, that can get hard. But so I'll leave it to you to experiment between templates and knowledge and decide which to use where. Yeah.
And are the templates, if I create a template, are they shareable to my team or they
Yeah.
mine?
By default, they're yours. And you can also share them with your team. I'll say this at least 3 times this morning. If you share something with your team, it is editable and deletable by your team. It really is your team. If you're concerned about that, I know Brian's frustrated with me already, you can save a copy for yourself and then save a copy for the team. That's always the answer. But just keep in mind, if you find a group template and you edit it, everyone in the team is going to see the edits. So just keep that in mind. I'll show you tricks for versioning things, though, so you can do that. Yeah. I know. I'll tell you like it is, though. OK, so what I'd like for you to do is click Save on this. Before you do that, you may have already done it. It's OK. I want you to also hover. And I'll ask you what you think the difference between submit and save is. Anyone? And I'll also tell you I only ask trick questions.
Submit initiates some other process, save, just persist.
Just persist. That's great. That's wrong. But I appreciate you trying, because we all want to feel a little bit of pain here. Submit and save are the same. OK? All the buttons, I'll just give you my advice here. All the buttons in the top right here are all the same, essentially. If you have communication for the customer, it's going to commit it to the database and email the customer. Submit and save. The only difference is where you end up after you click on them. That make sense? You're going to see a few more buttons up at the top right. And again, the only difference will be what happens after you click. So right now, if I save, I like to call it a save and stay, because it's going to commit this record to the database, potentially email the customer, and leave me on this form. So I call it a save and stay. If I hit submit, it's going to do all those things and send me back to wherever I was before. So depending on what you want to do, if I want to work on this record some more, I want to save. And if I want to get back to something else, I would click on submit.
What is before?
What is before? Well, in this particular instance, I had a home page open. But if I was working from a list, it would send me back there. If I was working from a custom filter, it would send me back there. It goes back to wherever you were. And I initially hated submit. The more I use the platform, I like submit more and more, because it does actually take you back wherever you were. Yeah?
Is there a thing with like a save a draft feature?
Nope. But you'll notice here, I'm going to call this general inquiry. That is just for me. So the new call form is actually pretty functional from that perspective. General inquiry or other is going to save this record, and really only I am going to see it. No email will be generated, nothing else. So that's why I like to stress this. It's an interesting way to capture data, and you might find other uses other than a phone call for it. That make sense? Okay. So I'm going to click on Save and stay here. Excellent. A couple things just happened. I did commit this to the database. You can actually see everything I've done in the log down here. I can make edits to the description and commit it to the log as well. One thing that also happened is my save button went away. It is a source of frustration, but one thing you're going to have to do and have to remember is that right-clicking on this gold bar is essential. So if I right-click on this gold bar, you'll see I have a couple different options pop up, and one of those is still save. I can do a couple other things that are interesting. Do you see this insert insert is a ServiceNow-ism. I apologize for that, but it's a ServiceNow-ism that essentially means copy. So if you want to make copies of your templates and things like that, you would insert them into the system and make copies. So remember that little trick if you want to make copies of things. It's baked into the system, so we can't change that word. So I still have my save button back if I wish. Okay, in this instance, I saved it, and I came back and realized, oh, this really is a service request. I need to generate a record and follow up with this customer. Am I okay with that? So what I'll do here is, well, hold on. You'd asked about templates. I'll show that first. In this right-click menu, do you see my template option? So on this when I right-click on this gold bar, I also have templates. I could save this current response as a template. And when I go through that menu, I could save it for myself or a group. Okay? I don't want to go down the road of going through templates at great length right now. Just experiment with that if you want to be able to do this. Just keep in mind, everything that's in here, including the caller, is going to be applied to the template, so you may have to edit it a little bit. And again, experiment here in eval, try it out, and see if you like it. A word of caution: nothing is going to transfer over to production. So by all means, experiment in eval, but don't go off and make 50 templates here. At the very end, we're going to go into the production system. That's where you'd actually want to make your templates for use when we go in the future. Sound okay? Great. Okay, I am going to pretty this up, put in a bunch of information, and I'm going to now make this a request. So if you guys could follow along with me. Yeah.
I don't see that option, apply template.
You have to save it first. It's one little caveat. So your general inquiry, yeah, template now. Yeah.
So it doesn't show me the apply.
What?
I don't see that apply.
You don't have any templates, sorry. You can't apply a template unless you have one or someone in your group has one. That make sense? Yep. Yep. Oh, great, great. So we'll talk a little bit about how to recover here. It's always okay if you get lost, please. So one thing about calls is you have in the Service Desk application a list of all of my calls. And this will actually take you back and show you every call you've created. So it's actually a useful way to go back. That's why I like the new call. I can go find everything I've logged there. It's not private. Anyone in the system could go look at my calls too, but no one really cares. So, okay, so I have changed this to a request. I'm going to save it again. So could everyone choose a request as the call type and then save? I get a friendly little notice here that this has been transferred to request here, and the call has essentially been closed out. So once it's been converted to a request, I can't update it anymore. I'll just make a note that I just emailed this customer. Remember that caution? When we actually create a record, a request or incident record, the customer gets an email confirming that a record has been made. So in this procedure, when you log it as a request or an incident, this gets emailed out. Okay? And I have that outlined in your handout as well. I would ask that you click that link to follow the request. And if you got lost, you could also go back and click on My Calls, go to this call, and that link is gone. But for anyone who got lost, you can always copy this request number here and search on it and go to that request. Does that make sense? Everyone able to follow the request? So I'm going to paste in my search and go to it. Are we caught up? Okay, good. I'm a little bit parental in this regard. I'd like everyone to follow along if you'll permit me that. Okay, so now we have a full request record, and the customer has been emailed. Kind of like emailing help at you. They receive the confirmation that it's been created, and they can click to follow up. We have a few new things to learn here. The first is a configuration item. If you would all click on this icon next to configuration item, this is called our CI Navigator. This is a list of all of our business services and service offerings. It's essentially our service catalog. And so every record has to have essentially a service offering attached to it. Remember what I said about aligning our work with the business needs? Here's where we do that. So click through here, find stuff that you support, and grab something. Is everyone able to kind of click through and find something that's useful for them? One note, you might not be able to find all of your service offerings today, but make a mental note. I'll challenge you to sit down as a service team, make sure you can clearly and easily identify all your service offerings. That's going to be essential for efficient work. But just find one that works for you for today. If you guys will watch me for a second, I'm going to do a demo, and I'm going to demo something I don't want you to do. I want everyone to watch me here for a minute. So by default, when I search through here, I'm only looking for services. There may be folks who want to actually log these records against hardware. If you do something like that, and it's going to be a rare bird that does that, you can change the scope, and you can see I can find 250 or more than 250 servers I can log this against. I just want to point out, by default, it's only going to show our services. So if I go to service CA, I don't see any of that stuff. Is that okay? So I just want to point that out. And then for those who do anything in networking, if you choose like a wired network service, you also have required sector information. Again, if you don't do networking, you don't have to worry about that. Just want to make sure everyone knew how the form functioned. Yeah, Ryan.
Do it against systems?
Systems? Up.
Not server, systems.
If you search all and go through, you can see what you can log it against. It's all going to be process and how your team wants to log things. This is mainly for metrics. So no matter who actually fulfills this request, which team handles it, the service manager could go in and see how many records came through the system against a particular system or service. So again, the metrics you want to get out of the system, out of this platform rather, depends on what you want to select there. Is that okay? Good. So the other thing I'll show you is that clicking through this list to find your service every time is for the birds. What I learn is what I need to type to find the things I support. I keep hitting my caps lock. Sorry about that. Not a good keyboard day. So if I type CATA, I can find my comfortable Catalyst web tools. I support that day in and day out. So what you'll learn to do is type ahead to find the services you want to register these against quickly. And again, this only has to be done if you are taking a call or generating a new record. If it's routed to your team, the service offering or the configuration item should have been preset. Okay, and then the next thing you need to know, is that a question or just a stretch? Just a stretch. You all caught up?
Yep.
Okay. The next thing that happens automatically is we have a default assignment group. So this group over here is the team of people who are going to see this record and be charged with resolving it, resolving the record. Okay. This would be roughly akin to the RTQ. Okay. Now, just as a note, some service teams have taken this opportunity to consolidate down and look at fewer queues. They may have fewer teams doing this. So the assignment group, though, is a critical element. These are the folks who are going to have to actually resolve this. You can change this, but I just want to point out that this is the default that comes in when I choose that configuration item. Everyone okay with that? Some other information has transferred over? Yeah, Chance.
There's no similar search capability there?
There is a similar search capability, yes. So if you go in, for all of these forms you're seeing me, you can type ahead, or you can search if you want to go find all of your assignment groups, all the potential assignment groups. There's no dependency, so you could put any assignment group for this particular configuration item. This is just the default. And this has been mapped by service owners, and this is configured in EMIR, if you know what that means. A lot of people don't know or care, but the service managers have mapped this, so this should be the default. The other thing to point out is if this gets escalated, there is a different default assignment group for the escalation group, typically a team of engineers. Some teams, though, have the same group for escalations, too. We'll learn a little bit more about that in a minute. Everyone okay with that? We've all found something. Some other things that happen here automatically. Since we opened the call, it automatically was assigned to us. Okay? And another little piece of information, if you were to transfer something to a request record or an incident record, you could just leave it. We followed this one because I want to follow up with the customer. If you do transfer something, it's going to end up in his lap in the back. It's going to go to the service center and get routed for us. So you can transfer things. They'll be assigned to the service center and can get routed from there. All that make sense? Okay.
Can you do that because you don't know where it should go?
Yeah. Usually I transfer people on the phone if I don't know where something should go, but we just want to know that there are defaults. It's not going to get lost. If we create a new record in the system, it's going to end up in someone's lap to make sure it gets assigned out properly. It won't go get dead-ended. Your hand is next.
If one of our items needs somebody else's help outside of either IT, is there a way to assign to different groups?
Not outside of UWIT right now, no.
But how do you resolve the problem?
If someone outside of UWIT has to do it,
For example, we often receive questions about accounting office or HR people.
you can.
They're looking for data that actually is something else. We typically through email send them out, say, okay, go to this office.
Yeah, so you would have to generate an email from here, and I can show you how to do that.
Oh,
Okay. So I don't forget to answer that question. In your top right, you see a few icons in there. You can add an attachment. The other one is you can generate an email. If you email out separately, it would be independent of the caller. You could email anyone you want. And the upside of that is the email is logged against this record. So this would be how you could contact an outside vendor or someone else. It's still your responsibility to resolve this record. Okay. Yeah.
There are situations come up where more than one service team is involved in solving a problem.
Yep.
Is there a way to chain them?
Absolutely. So you can set up request tasks, and each task could be put out to a different team. You can do that through incident or request. Yep. And notice I didn't even correct you when you said problem. Yeah. Because problem is a formal idle term, but sorry. I couldn't help it. Yeah.
So instead of request, do you have problem tasks?
Yes. All of them function very similarly. They can all have tasks associated with them and go hog wild. Yeah. All good questions. Excellent. So we can actually resolve this request now. Let's assume we're all done. Just point out, we're going to go through request in a little bit here, but whenever you resolve something, the additional comments down here, the customer visible comments, that's going to be the email that gets sent out. Okay? So let's go down here to additional comments, say, now resolved. Click on resolve request. We get an error message because we have to put in some closure information. By default, I don't believe you guys have tabs on. If you would all look in the top right, do you see this little icon that says toggle tabs on and off? And throughout this system, hover text is going to be your friend. So if you want to learn how something works, if you hover over it, it will often tell you. When I'm running the system, I always have my tabs on. So right next to my notes tab, I've got closure information. I would recommend that you do the same. Otherwise, what you see on your screen is going to be very different from me. That sound okay? After this session, you can choose to turn your tabs off. If you turn your tabs off, you have very long scrolls on your screen. Okay. I need to have basic closure information, close code complete, and now I can resolve the request. Phew. All right. Where'd you guys end up after that? After you resolve? Same screen? Sometimes it depends. It should be like a submit or a save. A submit or an update. Submit and update both commit the record, email the customer, and take you back to wherever you were before. So all good.
Process resolve and then update.
No, if you resolve, it should also update, but you don't have your close code set. If you had set your close code initially, it would have taken it. So you have to click it twice if you didn't set the code. Does that make sense? Yep. So we'll all learn to do that. The process owner for request management demanded that a close code be used. So it's not, ServiceNow does not do that. A human at UWIT decided that we have to have a closed code. This has been configured to follow our business processes now, so that you can complain to someone and actually ask them for a change. All right. I want to jump out of this for a second and talk a little bit about service offerings and groups before a break. So I'm going to power through for about 8 more minutes before you guys can all take a break. Does that sound okay? So we'll get through this. I think it's really useful to take a second to think about which service offerings you support. I've run into a lot of folks who actually don't have any service offerings in the system, and they need to get configured. So I'll show you how to look at that. We'll talk a little bit about Tier 1 and Tier 2 fulfillment and support groups. This fulfillment group is going to be the one that's auto-assigned whenever you choose a configuration item. And the support group is auto-assigned when you escalate a task. And for some people, this is the same. We're going to demo Googling ourselves in the system and also investigating your service offerings. Oh, and a friendly message from IAM. Make sure you've all signed your access and use agreement. As you go through here, you're going to find out you can get a lot of information about all of our customers and our employees. So make sure you're up to date on file. All right. If you could all go to the top right search bar and type in your NetID. So way up here, I'm going to type in my NetID and hit enter. Most people have a collapsed screen like this when you start, but go down to people and places, and you should find yourself. Do you all see your NetID? If you could click on your NetID in the system here. This is a very useful page. How many people have to do FYI lookups or UAI lookups? This is meant to ultimately replace those lookups and put all the information you need about our callers up here. It's not fully there yet, but eventually. And you're still laughing at me. Okay, that's great. For my purposes, though, it's pretty much good enough, but maybe not for everything you need. The goal is to do most. So I can also see some affiliations and other things for troubleshooting. And again, we can see this about all of our callers, not just ourselves. If you scroll down, we have some interesting tabs. The first one here is I have 28 incidents I've created as a caller. Yeah.
Do you have personal permission to activity?
Much of it is pulled from the directory. So yes, it is if you clean it up in the directory. Yeah. Your phone number in the system can be changed, though, if you wish to change that specifically here. So I like to refer to this as a CRM Lite. If you look up a person, look up one of our customers, you can see all of the stuff they've opened with us. So you can see all the prior issues they've had, which is something I've always wanted in RT. For right now, the most important thing to focus on would be your groups. And again, you'll notice I have tabs turned off on my system, so I can see all these tabs across. If you don't have your tabs turned on, click on that button so you can see them the same way. Otherwise, it's a very long scroll. So within the system, these are all the groups that I am a member of. If you only see UWIT staff, that means your service managers have not yet configured your groups. Does everyone have groups they expect to see there? So these are going to affect your default searches. You have your tabs turned off. You're welcome to keep with that, but I think it'll be easier if you turn your tabs on. Here, I'm going to check to see who's on Facebook. Great. So you see your groups. This is a good thing. If you don't see your groups, see, you don't have any groups. That means you're not going to have any work to do when we cut over from RT. So it might be a good thing, but this is an opportunity to maybe have that discussion as a service team. Are we all configured?
Actually, I'm on an external poly project. So
Perfect. That's a good thing. Some people, though, are very distressed when they go through this. So if you want to work today, you could use UWIT staff as your assignment group. So don't get hung up on this. All these groups are configured in Emir. And if you don't see what you need, just go pester your service manager to get it set up properly before the cutover date. If I click on any of these groups, I can actually see all the members. For example, UWIT staff shows the 693 members of that group, just for fun. But we all have access to this data anyway, right? We know how to find them. And as a side note, if you want to figure out how to edit your groups, obviously I can't edit UWIT all, but I have editor access to some of the other groups to add assignments here. And this is showing the UW group it's pulling from. That make sense? So for service managers, it's a great place to learn how to update your groups and all those folks. All right, next step. Let's go down here to, I'm going to show you a little trick that I like to do. I always minimize my application navigator before diving in. I find scrolling to be a little bit disorienting. I don't want to make you seasick this early in the day. If you guys could all go down to configuration and service offerings. So I'm in the configuration application, and I've clicked on service offerings. This is going to show all of those configuration items, those services you have as an option when you first log a record. So this is what you'd have to type in. If you're in advancement, you'd type in ADV. And you would, well, yeah, you'd get advancement advising. Right? So this is how you learn what to type. When you choose a service offering, as you scroll to the right, you will see who owns and manages those service offerings, and also the default assignment groups that will populate. And again, all of this is configured in EMIR. So this would be the tier 1 group, and to the right of that would be the tier 2 group for any tasks or escalations. So you can dive into the system and see this is pulling from EMIR and UW groups, and this is reflecting those configurations. We all okay with that? So this is a great thing to go through on your own time when you're outside of this class to figure out. Okay. No questions? Let's talk a little bit about filters and tables in the system before we take a break, because this usually makes people's heads hurt. How many folks know a little bit about databases? A little bit, enough to be dangerous? Okay, good. Knowing a tiny bit about databases often helps, but it's not essential. So instead of queues and searches, we're going to be using tables and filters. They amount to the same thing, but we'll be using that terminology. The defaults we've given you on your home page and in your My Records section are going to show all of the records assigned to you and all of your assignment groups. They're essentially filters against the entire database. And you start to realize, oh, I could just filter something different against the entire database, and that's absolutely true. So we're just giving you some defaults to get started, but you can look at anything you want and go resolve those requests on behalf of other people if you wish. So one thing to keep in mind, I'll be pointing out when we're on the task table here today, the importance of that, and it's something you have to really remember, is that when you're on the task table, it will show all records, all of your records, essentially all your problems, incidents, requests, and tasks. Okay, that's a really important point. So if you're filtering against that, it'll show all of those record types. If you're just on the request table, it will only show requests. That make sense? And getting that right is really important for creating advanced filters and also for creating home pages. So we'll revisit that a time or two. All right. Back in here, if you guys could all expand the My Records section, you can see, I'm going to expand that, and also I'm going to open up my home page to reiterate it. We have my work on the home page. We also have a filter here that is my work. If you click on that, it will actually display the filter, and here it points out that I'm on the task table. I'll just point that out until you're sick of me doing it. And it's showing the filter applied. It's showing all active records assigned to me that aren't pending, resolved, or resolved. I don't know if that's required or not, but that's the default. So it's showing everything assigned to me that's not resolved. Sound okay? If I were to go in here and drop down, you see this little caret? A lot of really nice things are hidden in the system behind right clicks and carets. It's kind of like Windows in that regard. How many people love Windows as much as I love Windows? We learn to right click and look for hidden gems. So that caret there hides a bunch. If I drop that menu down, I can see active is true, assigned to me, and all this stuff, right? I could modify this query just by clicking on elements. So X and X. If you guys want to follow along, we're going to generate a filter that is useful for today's experiment. So click on My Work and drop this down and eliminate your options so you only have one query item here. If you could go down and choose in your first element updated by, you can keep it starts with or change to is. It's either is equivalent for this, and put in your net ID. What this query is going to do, this filter, I use those words interchangeably. I apologize. I'm a little bit imprecise at times. What this filter is going to do is show all the records last updated by me. This is a useful filter if you resolve something. I want to point out that some people found this out the hard way. When you resolve records in the system, your net ID, your name is scrubbed from the assigned to portion. That's an important distinction, and that's part of our best practice. Are you able to get the, yes, good. Updated by is. So as we resolve things, let's say you resolve a record, Brian resolves a record and then goes on vacation, and the client opens that back up, it's going to be in your bucket of work if it's still assigned to you. So by default, when we resolve things, your NetID is off of it. So if you were to, for example, run a query like this, it would actually still find those records you have resolved. This is a way to follow up on work. The downside of this is that if someone updates it after me, it's not going to find that record. So I'm still trying to find that perfect filter that finds everything I've ever touched, and I'm still searching for it. So if you guys would go in here and click on two things, I'm going to ask you to save this filter. If you click on the Save button, you can call it Updated by Me. And note that I could save it to just for me, and I can also save it for my group. And if you're paranoid, you would give it a name and save it to me. Then you would change the name and save it to your group. That make sense? So you could save it twice, once for me and once for my group if I wish to do that. I have 25 students in my group, and they're going to probably delete everything I make just while they're playing around. So I'm going to practice with that. So I could save it to me, and I could change the name and save it to my group. Everyone okay with that? If you choose group, you have to select a group to save it to. You don't need to do that right now. Just wanted you to point that out. I see that. Okay.
So can I ask how you retrieve that?
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit about how to retrieve that. There are a couple different ways. First and foremost, let's show you how to bookmark that. So anytime you have this filter open, I can grab the last element. I think I lost mine. Here, I'll show you how to retrieve that. If you click on Tasks and Filters, it should show you all of the filters applied to the that you've made against the task table. That make sense? Now just keep in mind, if you went in and made a filter against a different table, it wouldn't show up here. So that's a limitation of the database model. But if you make something against the task table, looking for all records, it'll show up anytime you see tasks, filters, here they are. So I can do all updates, and updated by starts with me. That sound okay? Now from this filter, if I grab the last element, I can drag it over to my PowerEdge, and I can also have a bookmark for this filter. The reason why I like having you do this at this point in the demonstration is while we're going through this, you're making a bunch of records. If you hit submit and then lose it and can't find your record, if you go back to this filter, you'll find it. It's a little bit disorienting in this workshop. We have tons and tons of records assigned to UW-IT staff. So you see lots of records in your assignment groups. So this environment's kind of artificial and a little bit frustrating at times. When you're in production, you're only going to see your groups and hopefully won't lose anything. That make sense? So I'd like to have you have this filter here just in case. Any other questions? Yeah. So this is the default picture. Let's do that.
Yeah.
If you were to hover on this, well, this one requires a hover. Hover, edit, bookmark. I can actually change the image and choose something else. So a little cell phone icon update. So you can change these images to be more evocative, to differentiate. The other thing I'll point out, if you hover over the star, it actually shows you all of your bookmarks and shows you the name if you hover over the star. So you can give it a better name and then not rely on the icons as well. Okay. Now, the one thing I'll say about this PowerEdge, and then I won't say it again, one personal thing I'll say about it, I don't like it much. It's not available in the tablet environment. So if you're fortunate enough to have an iPad or something like that, this won't show up. So if you have your filters saved, I know, it's cringe-inducing. But what you'll find out in the mobile environment is that if you go and click on the table, with your finger, tasks, you can apply your filter from there. So that's why I want you to be aware when you're on the task table and know how to save and find your filters. Does that make sense? And it's a really important skill and trick to really use this platform to its fullest. Sound okay? These are nice, especially if you're working on something, a temporary filter. You can click on in here a bunch, but make sure you know how to save and access them in the future. Okay, so we're going to take a 10-minute break. We're going to come back at 10:05, and you're welcome to ask me questions or complain as you see fit. Thanks.
Is there a way to add
we are going to, well, my point here was to please come back, but at least 3 folks haven't yet, so we'll see what happens here. We're going to talk a little bit about service requests. Oh, you got your coffee? Excellent. So I'll just remind you, how many people use subtickets now? So we're going to eliminate the term subticket. We're going to call, if you're talking about requests, we'll call them R tasks. Okay? So instead of subtickets, we'll have R tasks. They can optionally require approval if you want to set up a required approval for your requests. That's more advanced. We're not going to go through that today. And just as a reminder, all emails that come in the front door to help at you will initially generate a request. They can be converted to incidents as applicable. So we're going to go into the Service Desk module and click on Create New Request. Service Desk application. Hello. All right. Sorry. Did I say Service Desk? I meant Service Requests application. So from your application navigator, you can click on Create New Request. Some of this stuff, I hope, becomes very quick for you. So I'm going to speed through some forms. For example, configuration item. We already know what to put there. And we're going to add that in. We know what to do with our caller in the top right. And we're going to learn a few new things today. Down here, you can set the contact type if you wish, not important. We're going to learn a bit about priority. So right now, we're all asked to calculate the impact and urgency of all of our requests and incidents. So for example, if it's a single person asking for something, it would, of course, be low impact. But if it was a VIP, you could calculate a higher urgency. Similarly, if it was a network outage, it would be high urgency and high impact, which would give you a #1 priority. This could be used to triage if you have a whole bunch of requests or incidents in your assignment group. You can use this priority to decide what to do first. Another note, all of these little text links, these question marks, will take you to a document that also helps you to learn about these states and other statuses. So if you forget what I say today or want to learn more, you can go there. Yeah.
So what is the actual implication of this impact urgency? Does it change anything on how it appears on my screen?
So when you're looking at your screen and your list, you can see the calculated priority. So you could sort. You could sort based on priority if you choose to, if that makes any sense. Or if I looked at my list and I saw something that was higher, I'm going to assume someone got yelled at on the phone, and I'll probably address that one first, if that makes sense. So it's really within your service team how you want to use that calculation. That make sense? Okay. By default, they're all going to come in with a priority of 5, or the lowest priority. Excellent. Down here, again, you see template. I would recommend that you learn how to use that if you really want to put in some form data or canned answers to requests. That's a great thing to use. And just like the other type of heads, you'd want to memorize the name of your templates so you can find them quickly. If you forget, you can always click on this search icon and go in and see all of your templates. I had just made some templates with bad names. Template 148, template 150. You probably should use better names than that, but you could edit and apply templates as you see fit. Short description. Help, my data is gone. I like to point out, so I don't forget, that if someone had emailed us through Help at You or to one of our services email addresses, this would be the subject line of their email. Pretty straightforward. Over in the top right here, we have our caller and caller information. Something that's also interesting, if you look at the caller and click on this little icon, I can get a pop-up of all of their last 10 incidents and requests. So it's kind of interesting to see if they're a high-volume customer. Oh, wait, maybe I should do a little investigation before I work this. They might have a history with us. So we'd like to call this CRM Lite, so you can at least see what they've asked for in the past. I'm going to go down here, and I could leave it just in this assignment group, just like a new ticket coming into my queue. Someone can take it. But for today, I'll just stress that we should all click on this little Add Me button to make sure we're assigned all records. That make sense? The list of records in your assignment groups is going to be long. So if you add yourself, you'll be able to find it under My Work. I could also add someone else in this particular field. Just keep in mind, they have to be a member of this assignment group to add them. But if I want to work around, I could delete the assignment group, add anyone I want, and then add the assignment group back. That make sense? Just by default, they have to be a member of here. And if I go in and try to find someone that I should find, I get this little error. I could go in and fix that. So I could go and put someone else from my assignment group. I'm okay with that? Excellent. All right, 2 new things for you to learn. We have the watch list, which is customer visible, and the work notes list. How many people use CC in RT? So if you want to add additional callers, you would use this watch list. And how about admin CC in RT? It's one of my favorite features. This would be the work notes list. So this list would get all of the customer communication as well as the internal work notes. So this would be the UWIT side of things. Just keep in mind, everyone throughout UWIT can see everything you do in all of your records. But these people would get an email whenever you update the record. The customer visible one is going to be adding additional people to the single caller. The work notes is the term we're going to use for internal communication.
So whatever is in the work notes does not go to...
Does not go to the customer, nope. And we'll practice with that too today. Audit completed is just a checkbox. If you wish to mark this as having been audited, it doesn't have any specific workflow behind it. So, all right, let's go down to the description. We just went to the service requests application, and we click create new request. You'll get caught up pretty quickly. Let's go down to the description. This is going to be the subject, or see, the body of the inbound email, the description of the customer's request. I'm just adding extra data in there for fun. Keep in mind, this is customer visible. In this particular scenario, when we first submit this record, that description is going to go out to the customer. Okay, so I just want to point that out. This is artificial in that we're creating requests. Very often it's going to be an inbound email, and of course it'll already be logged and submitted in the database. But as we create this new request, this is going to go out to the customer. Down below that, we have the notes section. Here it says additional comments, customer visible. This is essentially the box that's intended for us to communicate back to the customer. So every time we update this section and save the record, this will be emailed out to the customer. And this box right here, under our normal workflow, if anything in here is what's going to initiate the customer notification. If you have anything typed in here, it will be emailed to them. So I'm going to say, hi, Jake, sorry to hear that. Again, I'm just going to simulate a customer interaction, so I'm doing something mildly realistic. And then down below that, we have our work notes. This is going to be the internal UWIT stuff. I tried and failed. I even failed to type fail correctly. All right. So we've put in some stuff and understand that the description would have been what the customer wrote to us. This is our response. And this is internal communication. OK, time for the next trick question. What do you think will happen if I click on Create R task? What? Yeah, it's a button up in the top right. So it's going to commit this record to the database and email the customer. So the generalizable rule is that any of these buttons are going to commit the record and send a customer communication if applicable. That's the easiest way to remember this. That make sense? As we're working these records, as long as you don't have anything in the customer, the comments section, it's not going to generate a new email. In this scenario, though, since this is just open and I have not yet saved it, it's going to send out the description and the comments no matter what. Okay? The customer will get a notice saying a request has been opened on your behalf. Click here to see the status. Okay. So let's all hit save. All right. Everyone has a saved record, no errors. You can then scroll down and see our activity log. You can see my work notes. This is going to be customer communication up here. And then after a minute, we're also going to be able to see the formatted email that went out. They all get queued up and sent out. It sometimes takes 30 seconds or so you're not seeing it in the log just yet. Any questions about that? So what do you think is going to happen? I'm going to look here, my additional comments section. What's going to happen if I hit update right now? I like to quiz people. I apologize. Nothing. It's going to commit something empty, and it's not going to email the customer. If I go in here and click Hi and click Update, it will generate an email to the customer that says Hi. That makes sense? Just want to belabor that point. That's how we respond to our customers as we're working records. Now, something that's new, and it's going to take a second to wrap our brains around, is that the description field is editable. How many people have received a long, rambling, and inaccurate request from a customer in the past? I've received several. We do have the ability to actually edit what they originally requested of us. The interesting thing is, an edit to this field will not generate an email. But if you were to comment back to them again, that edited description will go back to them. So I'll leave it up to you to decide if you want to touch the original descriptions or just always leave it intact. That's going to be your service team or your own personal preference. Another interesting side effect of this is, if you update this description, whenever your record's been updated, it's immediately visible to the customer in our new portal. So if the customer goes and checks on the status of their service request, this version, whatever you've last saved, is going to be visible in our customer portal. So it might be best if you leave it the way they asked, or you may decide to make edits and communicate with your customer that way as well. So this is that whole transparency thing coming back. Everyone okay with that? Again, an edit here will not trigger an email, but every time an email goes out, this will go with it. And that's also outlined in your sheet. I found this a little bit mesmerizing the first time I had to learn it, so I want to just belabor that a tiny bit. All right. Let's go back here. You'll notice that the Save button is gone. We can also right-click on this. You might be working this record and say, oh, shoot, this is actually an incident. Right? I've done some investigation. I may have already even communicated with the customer. I could still, at this point, convert it to an incident. The customer won't get an email. It will close this down and open up an incident, and I can work it as such. It's pretty much immediate. If I convert to incident, I can click to follow that incident and work it. That sound okay? And the customers don't know the difference between a request or an incident, nor should they have to. One thing I want to point out here, I have a reload button. Reload is useful. What do you think is going to happen if you hit F5 on your keyboard or refresh your screen? Do you think it'll refresh this record? You won't do it a second time if you do that. It'll take you back to the home page. So right-clicking and reload is the way you would actually refresh this particular screen. So I'll go in here, click reload, and come on down here. And now you can see in my activity log the email that was sent out to my customer, in this case, me. If I expand that, I can see the formatted email with the description, and if he had additional comments, they would be down here. They also always get a link to go back to our IT Connect portal and see the current status of their request or incident. Everyone okay with that? You're able to reload and find that? Great. So let's assume in this scenario, yeah.
So if I'm assigning a request or an incident, and I find there's a dependency on something else, is there a way to, how do I say that this is dependent on that I can't work on?
I'll show you how to do that right now. So up at the top right, we have create our task. I just want to note that if you hover over that, it saves this request and generates a task. And by saving, it could also email the customer if you have comments there. That's why I'm pointing out that all these buttons can email the customer. It is a save. Whenever you save, it's going to send out customer comments. So let's all click on create our task. Yeah.
Is it going to send anything
No. You could actually put in work notes and then click Create R Task. The work notes would be committed when you click that button. It's just that any save will send out the comments if there are any. It's a big if. But it has a potential to communicate to the customer. So we all have to just really pay attention to the customer visible comments. And how many people have noticed that comments is a bad choice of words here? In RT, comments are internal and hidden. So don't be that first person to send out the customer visible comments accidentally. Yeah, hand.
One thing I found like that, so when you click update,
Yep.
you stay on the same ticket. When I click update, it go back.
Yeah, update's supposed to take you back. What I generally do is I right-click and save if I want to stay on this ticket. Yep. Unfortunately, we all have to do that. One note is that the new user interface should come out in the fall, and the requirement to right-click is going to be lessened at that point. The new user interface has a button that exposes this menu, and it's going to be much more touch-friendly, because right-clicks are not the greatest way to interact with web pages these days. But, OK, I've created a task, and this could be a dependency. And so I could actually assign this to a different group. By default, the assignment groups I had on the parent request are there. But on this request task, R task, it's always going to show the parent request here. I could assign this to a particular person or a different assignment group, and they could fulfill that task associated with this request.
So my question is, how do I make my request a child of something else?
You cannot make a request a child of something else. You can do that with incidents, though. So we'll talk about incidents a little bit and then decide if that's correct. But requests cannot be a child of another, at least at present. Okay. If you have an absolute business need, you should talk to Richard Ortiz and work with him on that. All right, so in here, this is the original description. This is going to be the description of this task only. Remember I showed you that complicated slide with things communicating back and forth? Anything put in the work notes will communicate back to the request and to any other request task. So if I open up 6 request tasks for different engineers, if anyone updates their work notes, it will populate to all of the other request tasks as well as the request they're associated with. It's designed to be really chatty. So I just want you to know that behavior.
And does that also go back to the customer? Or?
The only thing that will go to the customer is customer comments in the request. So the notes will be pushed to the log of the request. So this is great if you have engineers that you work with that you don't want to talk to the customer, give them an R task or an incident task, and they don't have to worry about accidentally communicating. They can't. There's no option in here to communicate to the customer. As part of this request task, though, let's say I decide, I need to contact the customer. I can always find the parent request, go back and talk to the customer. It's not like I'm barred from it, but this task itself cannot contact the customer. OK. So I'm just going to talk as an engineer here. I fixed it and go there. Everyone OK with that? Once my request task has been fulfilled, I can change the state. Right now, I could choose something like work in progress or close complete. I'll do work in progress just for fun. I'll note that you can actually record the time you spend on a task if you want to do something like that. This clock will just automatically start ticking. And if you save this task, that time will get pushed to the total and then reset. So you have current time and cumulative time if you want to actually use something like that. If you find it to be inaccurate, you can just stop it and type in the actual time you worked. Again, this is up to you if you actually want to use this for some sort of time tracking. This will not report to Dynamics for you. So this is just for your purposes. It'd be kind of really scary if it did, though. Just leave that clock running all day long. So anyhow, I'll just point that one out. If you hit update from here, this is where update's useful, because it's going to commit my changes and send me back to the parent record. You could also save and stay, but often I'll want to update and go back. All right. I'll point out an important dependency here. In this particular request, I would like to resolve it. Okay. One thing I can't do is resolve a request with open R tasks. That make sense? All the tasks have to be complete before I can close the request. And I misspoke there. I apologize. The only thing I'll be a stickler on today is using of the word closed. It's a very specific state before I can resolve the request. And I'll talk more about that in just 1 minute. So if I go up here and try to resolve my request, with any luck, I should end up with an error. It's not going to happen until I actually try to go and put my close notes in. I'll point out at the very bottom here that if I look at my, you guys, can you scroll all the way to the very bottom of your screen? You'll see your request tasks, and you can see I have one request task associated with this. It's a habit we're going to have to get into. If you're ever working a request that's been opened before and worked by a couple people, we'll have to learn to scan through all the log and then also look for open tasks if you use those things. It's a little bit hidden. Now, one thing that I believe is still broken, we're in eval. One thing that's broken is that you should not be able to see the resolve request button right now. In incident, that button goes away if there are any open incident tasks. So that button is a visual indicator. I can't resolve it because there are open tasks, and I find that to be very useful. And if you're using tasks, you'll want to remember that. This is supposed to be fixed so that the resolve button is gone if there are open request tasks. Does that make sense? So I have to talk to Joby about that. It's an interesting problem. So I'm going to show you one thing. If you want to just watch, I'll give you a quick demo of something that's interesting. When I click Create Task, here, I'll back out of that. I'm in this resolve state, so I'll just keep it open. When I click Create Task, Jake, here, let's reload. For some reason, it really wanted me to close it out. If I click Create and go back, that task really is created. I don't have to save it. And so we've had people get kind of confused. They click Create Task and go back. I've just created 2 additional request tasks that have to be closed out. Does that make sense? I just don't want you to fall into that trap. If I scroll down to the bottom, though, I can see them all. Can you guys see the 3 request tasks on the screen? And I'm going to show you one of the cooler things about this platform. This is a list view of the database. I can click and edit from this screen. I don't have to go into the request task to toggle the state. So imagine if I had 72 request tasks, I could update them all at once. Let's say it's canceled. We're going to cancel this request, but I have all these tasks to close. I'll show you this again because I think it's useful. I'm going to hold my Windows key and Shift, and I can drag and select multiple cells at once. And I'll show you this again, so don't worry. And I can also do Control and Shift and select non-contiguous cells, kind of like you would in Excel. See, is it Control Shift? Yeah, it should be Control Shift. It's not working today. There we go. So if I can select those non-contiguous cells and double-click, I can actually update both of them or all of them at once. Does that make sense? So I just want to remind you of that behavior. I always forget the shortcuts, but just knowing that I have to mash a few keys on the lower left-hand corner of my keyboard, I usually remind myself how to find the shortcuts. So I can go in here and update these 3. Windows Shift drag, double-click, and change their status to closed, complete, and commit. That sound okay? All right. Up at the top left, we have state. We have a new state or 2 for you to learn today. And I'm going to click on this little question mark icon. Everyone able to close out their tasks?
Are you on Windows 7 there?
This is on Windows 7, yes. What?
I don't think your Windows keys can work on Windows 8.
Oh, it's going to be something else. Yeah, okay. I don't have a new computer, so I forget. But there is a way to do it. You just have to remember how to do it on your system. I guess is a generalizable thing. Everyone able to close it? You can double-click on that. Double-click on the state. Double-click, yep. And then you can change it to close complete. Yep. And close complete and check. You guys able to close it? You have to put in comments. If you scroll up, you've got your comments and close notes.
So this one, where the square box on the side, you can just click them.
Oh, that also, yeah, you can do multiple update too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but that doesn't apply to, yeah, it depends on where you're at.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. All right. So if you guys want to come back for a second here, let's talk a tiny bit about state. We have a new state for you, and that is of awaiting user info. How many people have asked a customer for information and have them never get back to you? So right now, if you put something in a state of awaiting user info, they will automatically get a reminder in 5 business days that we're waiting on them, and after 5 additional business days, their request will be closed. Done. They can't reopen it. Now, just keep in mind, make sure that the customer you're dealing with can handle that interaction. So I don't know if I would do this with a dean, but if you have a customer that tends not to get back to us, we can put in that state, and if they don't want to get back to us, we're not going to do it. They can open a new request. They'll learn to get back to us. Yeah.
Do you have an example of a video that does that?
I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to want to test that out myself before I use it. Yeah, I'm skeptical. I'm going to make a request. When I'm live, I'm going to make a request of my team and test it out and see what gets sent before I do that to any customer.
It'd be great if that was documented somewhere.
Yeah, I'm sure it's documented somewhere. I haven't seen it yet, though. I'll need to see it with my own 2 eyes before I use it. I'm as skeptical as anyone, I promise. Just want to point out that workflow. You can also have a few other states in here. The first that I'll talk about now is that of resolved. So if you mark something resolved, the customer can still object and reopen it. But if they don't within 3 business days, it will become closed. We can't actually set a state to closed. When the customer, when we notify them it's been resolved, they'll get an email. And if they don't reply, it will automatically move to a closed state and they won't be notified that it's closed. If they attempt to reply back to an incident or a request that's closed, they'll have to make a new one. The reason why we do this is because sometimes people reply to really old RT tickets and reopen that ticket year after year. They can no longer do that in the system. It's impossible. So we could also resolve something and within 3 days reopen it ourselves, move it back to active. But once it's closed, we can't fix it. Sound okay? Now, after seeing that, you might understand why we have a status of delivered. If you have a really important customer, you can mark something as having been delivered and then chat with them to make sure it meets their specifications before you move it to the resolved state. That make sense? Because this resolved state, again, is pretty aggressive. They have 3 days to object, or it gets closed. You'll note at the bottom, we still have stalled. The intention for this is actually work that has been scheduled. CTE still required a stalled state for future work. But it's not stalled as if we're waiting for customer information, like we commonly use now. Again, you can use all these states. There's no limits on what you can use, but we just wanted you to see the formal definition of each. Internal review down here is mainly for the service center. If you put something in that state, a configuration item is not required. So if you don't know where something goes and you're struggling with it, you could mark it for internal review if you had to. If you want to get back to the customer and find out what the heck they are talking about, you can mark it internal review. Everyone okay with that? Again, that link is here. You can click to learn more. Let's move this to a state of resolved. It says customer comments are required. There will be no quiet closes. Right now in RT, we can close something out without communicating. That can't be done in the system. So hi, now done. And closure information is required. So I could put a close code of complete and then click update or resolve. Both will be equivalent. Everyone okay with that? Again, update and resolve, the only difference there would be by clicking on resolve, I stayed on the record. By clicking on update, I would have been taken back to a different screen. Depends on what I wanted to do. Everyone okay with that?
Actually, I have a question. So, as soon as you just resolve a ticket, can I open it back?
I can go back and change the state. I have 3 days. So I can go in here and change it back to active if I wish, internally. Or if the customer responds to us, it'll automatically toggle back to active within 3 days.
If action was completed?
If it moved to closed after 3 days, you cannot reopen it. Yep. You'd have to, you could go to it, copy the information into a new request, and work it.
But can you actually do like a sub-ticket for a completed one?
No.
Can you link them?
There's no formal linkage, but you could put in a link. If you were to right-click on this field, you could see that you have an actual copy URL to this particular record, or you could just reference this request number in the work notes. But there's no formal field to put in linked records. Sound okay? Yeah. I think if it's anyone on the list, anyone on the customer visible list, anyone replies, it should open it back up. And another note on that, in theory, a thank you would reopen the record. What's going to happen for us is that all the thank yous are going to go through Lima. If it's just a thank you, it'll be suppressed. If it's a thank you, but I really wanted X, Y, and Z, that will come back and reopen it. So a human's going to actually look at all the thank yous. That is correct, right? It's all going to go through Lima. Otherwise, every single thank you would reopen it, and when we have to resolve it again and wait for 3 more days. It's just the way the system's built. So our customers are going to learn not to say thank you. Sorry, that's not funny, but it is true. I tend not to email thank you to anyone anymore because I worry I'm going to reopen their ticket, right? So it's the downside of our modern world. All right. And again, you saw the right-click, convert to incident. That is an option if you have a request that is inappropriate and should be an incident. And I'll just point out this last little bit of information here. You know when you click on, so you all know what this looks like, right? You don't need to read anything on my screen. You notice when you click Assign to Me, that's actually not visible to anyone else until you save the record. Right? In RT, we're used to clicking on the Take button, and that immediately makes you the owner. You guys used to that? Here, I need to assign it to me, and if I want to make sure no one else in my team takes this record or works on it, I'll have to save it right away before I start working it. So what we'll learn to do is read the description, scan the log for information, and then come back up here, take it and save it before we finally come in and start working it. Just want to point out kind of the workflow. You can do what you wish. Just want to mention that. All right, let's talk a little bit about incident management. A great deal of this is going to be repetitive, so I won't do that. A lot of the forms will behave the same way. The tasks are very similar. The formal definition is slightly different, i.e. help something's broken. But I'm going to introduce 2 new really important pieces of functionality with incidents. The first is to be able to do on-call activation. How many people are on service teams with pagers and get woken up in the middle of the night? So that's something you can do in incident that you can't do in request. And the other is the ability to have a parent incident. And what that means is one incident that can talk down, well, I don't talk down to my children, but you know what I mean, can speak out through many child incidents. So we're going to go through both activation of on-call and this parent incident scenario for you. I'll point out, too, that if you work with COP staff or other escalation points, SolarWinds and Dash also is configured to generate incidents whenever there's an error thrown. Did I skip anything in there? Again, iTasks will replace subtickets in this. All right, let's get started with a new incident. I'm going to go to Incident and Create New. So Incident, Application, Create New. Again, this could have been an email from a caller saying, help me. I'm gonna go through a couple of these things very quickly because it's repetitive, so I'll ask you to fill out this form. Outage report. Please escalate. Don't forget to assign it to yourself so we don't lose our incidents. The only piece of functionality that is different between incident and request up here in the top is that the assignment group does not auto-populate. Okay? If you don't put in an assignment group, it's going to default back to the Udemy Service Center, which may in fact be a good thing. They will manage the incident from there. So if you create a new incident from scratch, just be aware that the assignment group does not auto-populate. If you were to convert a request into an incident, which would be much more common for your average person converting a request, it will keep the assignment group as it was in the request. So it shouldn't be too big a deal. Just wanted to note, you need to choose the assignment group here specifically. So I can go in and do something interesting. All right, we all have that populated. I've got an outage report. Again, body of the email. Down here is where we communicate with the customer. That's all repetitious, so I won't go through it. Up here at the top, in this particular example, I'm going to skip the Save button and go immediately to Create iTask. Keep in mind, that whatever is visible down here will get sent out to the customer when I click on this button. So I can say, hi, Jake, I am escalating. And if any comments were down here, both boxes would get sent out upon initial incident creation. All right. So this is going to do is save and then create an incident task. This looks very similar to the request task. Again, it's like a subticket. It carries over a bunch of information. I could just leave this in an assignment group and have someone in that assignment group fix this operation. Like, looks like the server needs a reboot. I could assign it to someone specific if I know which engineer is working right now. If I assign it to them, it's going to show up in their work. That make sense? A lot of that is repetition from request. I'm going to point out a big difference. I have a button at the top right here that says Contact On Call. And I'll ask that you click it, but don't do anything after that. Say, Jake, why would you do that? I'm going to show you what I believe to be the second and last lie. This is really going to contact people right now, even in eval. So don't play around with this for fun unless you're an engineering group testing out the paging system and you know you're not going to wake anyone up. Okay? If you go grab someone's on-call group and use it, it's going to page them in the middle of the night. Okay? So was that a stern enough warning? Awesome. I'll just point out, though, that when you click Contact On-Call, you can also contact a user. And so even if you're not in an on-call group, you might think, I want to contact William, and I know he's out on campus. I know his cell phone is an on-call destination. I could actually contact him and send him a text via this mechanism. That makes sense? So everyone, if you go contact a user, is your own personal on-call. So I'm actually going to use this on my team. It's a really nice piece of functionality.
So Jake, where does that contact user on-call info come from?
It comes from your settings in the system. And at the very end, we'll show you how to set that up if you want to be contacted that way. Again, if you don't want a text from the system, don't do it. But all of my students have 25 staff, not always there, but they all know how to text me if there's an emergency. Well, they can also do it this way too. So if I go contact a user, I know I have my system set up, so I can find myself in here. When I click on OK and save this, it will, I've tested it many times, it will send me a text. Not in the basement here, but as soon as I go out, I'll find that I have a text that there was an update or an emergency. So I'm going to click Cancel. The other thing you can do is you can contact an on-call group. Again, this is going to be an official on-call group with a rotation and a vacation schedule and all that. Don't play around with that unless you're in one of those groups. There is some confusion about maintaining these schedules. I frankly find it mystical. We don't have very good documentation on how to update your schedules right now, but that will be forthcoming if you're in an on-call group. Are we okay with that description? Okay, good. I'll hit Cancel. So, sorry. I want to show you how it works, so I will actually contact myself. It's only one text. It won't break the bank. Okay. Stay on page. Contact the user. That's okay. Oh, yeah. There we go. So this actually saved the page, and you'll notice that the button up here at the top stopped. It actually activated my on-call rotation, and it's going to list me as the on-call target here once it refreshes, and I'm going to get a text. That sound okay? This is going to keep sending out notifications based on my own personal preferences until I come in here and click Stop On-Call. That sound okay? Again, this would be if your service team wishes to escalate in this fashion. You'll notice that by doing that, it selected active contact, which is essential, and the state is escalating. Yeah?
How did you get to that dialogue where it's choosing user?
Up here, you have to do activate on-call, contact on-call at the top right. There's a button there. If you don't do that, you have to go through here and select active contact, and just click the button if you need to do this. I wish it were a little more obvious. I'm going to click Update and come back. I want to point out one more piece of nifty incident functionality. What?
When you assign the on-calls,
It's going to be your personal preferences. So you don't know what my settings are. If I just want to get an email, that's what it'll do.
So we can't say it as a person assigning.
I don't know what that person I'm assigning to has set up. But if you're on a service team that's doing this, I think you're going to sit down as a team and have a convention set forth. Okay. So let's go back to the parent incident. I'm going to go here, click Update. With any luck, it'll take me back to the incident. Here I am. We have 2 new states in incident. Those are awaiting Tier 2 and awaiting vendor. Both of these are interesting states. If you put either of these states here, if you make it awaiting Tier 2 or vendor, and hit Save, this incident will stay in this state until there's an update on any of the incident tasks. So if anyone comes to a task and updates it, it will toggle your incident back to active. So if you're a Tier 1 agent watching your incidents in your list of work, you can see, oh, I'm waiting Tier 2, I'm waiting Tier 2. You see one toggle back to active, you can click and see what the engineer did. That make sense? One caution, if you had 15 incident tasks, an update to any of them will toggle your incident back to active, and that's by design. The incident process team wants that. That make sense? In this particular exchange, it's actually a pretty easy one. I'll go in as an engineer. Oh, and before I forget, you see at the top, I lost my Resolve Incident button. Again, that's a visual indicator that I have an open incident task and can't click on that button. I'll go in here as an engineer, click on my task. I'm going to click on Stop On Call, so I stop getting text messages. Say, yep, fixed, in the middle of the night, and I can update. You can see that my incident itself is set back to active. Now, in that exchange, you'll notice I didn't mark the incident task as closed complete, so I would still have to make sure the task is closed out. The engineer was a little lazy. You'll notice I still can't click on Resolve until I scroll down, and I can change my status. Now that I've saved it, I have the ability to resolve my incident. Everyone okay with that? Any questions about the on-call escalation? Again, incident tasks, the work notes will communicate back to the incident and to other incident tasks. It's been designed to be very chatty, so everyone who has tasks on a related incident knows what's going on. So your work notes could become quite long, your log.
So if there's an active incident and there are new requests coming in to the system, how do you take those new requests and essentially make them iTask?
Yeah.
Or
You would right-click and convert each one. As it comes in, you'd read it and say, yep, that's that same incident. Right-click, convert to incident, and follow it and work it.
Okay, so if you had some kind of a major incident, you'd actually have lots of siblings. They don't become children of that parent incident.
Not automatically. But when we go through the parent incident management scenario, you'll learn how to do that. Yeah, that's a great question, though. That's a good setup for what we do next. Other questions about that? Again, everything's going to come in the front door as a request. If the service center notices it's a big outage, they'll also convert them to incidents as appropriate. But for my services, I know they're not going to know if it's an outage or not. It'll get routed to my team, and we will have to convert to incident as necessary. And again, automated alerts from monitoring systems will come in as incidents, so they don't have to be converted as well. Other questions? So we could either take a break now or in 10 minutes. We can get through the parent incident scenario and show you that relationship. Right now, you okay with that? I know I'm going a little bit slow, but I like to make sure everyone stays with me. I strive for boring. Boring is good. Okay? No, you're disagreeing, but I want to be complete. Okay. Let's go through a parent incident scenario. I'm going to go to my incident application and click Create New. In this scenario, we're going to assume that we have a whole slew of incidents that are all part of a major outage. And what we want to do is triage, and we want to have the ability to communicate to all of these related incidents and once the outage is over, we want to close them all at one time. That sound like an okay scenario? It doesn't have to be a network outage. You might have other related issues where you want to treat a whole bunch of incidents the same, communicate the same, and then close them all at one time. If you don't think you would ever do something like this, you can also safely take your hands off the keyboard and watch. That sound okay? So this could just be comforting. I know I'm going to have to do this, and we're in eval. If you ever think you're going to have to do this, please practice. So I'm going to click on Incident Create New. I'm going to, again, fire up my service offering, caller, all that good stuff. And I'll put in my assignment group. And I'd like to make sure I assign it to myself. I'm going to call this outage report number 1. Okay, I'm going to copy that. When I submit or save this, obviously this fictitious caller will get an email. I'm going to go back to Incident Create New and do the same thing. So I just want to be a little more efficient here. Outage report number 2, configuration item, again, redundant, caller, the same. In the real world, it would be a different caller. And I'm going to assign it to me. Everyone okay with that? So what I've done is created 2 incidents, 2 people reporting an outage, and I realized that they're related because I'm an excellent technician. Okay. I'm going to go back to my work. And with any luck in this particular scenario, I see 2 outage reports, and I realize that, oh, shoot, I've got a big outage. In this particular scenario, assume that I have a long list of people complaining about something that's related. Brian, what I've done is created 2 outage report incidents that are just generic placeholders. Okay. So what I will now do, I'm going to assume that I'm the incident manager in this situation. I'll put on my hat and say, I'm working this incident. I'm going to create a parent incident. Okay? So what I'll do is I still have to put in a configuration item, always required. I'm going to make myself the caller. As the incident manager, I want to be the person who's contacted. So I'll actually use my net ID as opposed to the fake Jake Kolsted's. Put it in my assignment group, and also assign it to me. One thing, I spoke with Mike Houlihan about this. One thing that they're going to recommend is that if you are using parent incident functionality, you literally type parent in the short description. There's nothing else about this that really distinguishes this as a parent. The parent nomenclature is going to help you a lot, I promise you. Okay, I'm not going to correct my spelling in the interest of time. So I've created a new incident that I own. I'm on both the caller and it's assigned to me, and I've called it a parent. All right, so back in my work, with any luck, I now have 2 outage reports and a record I wish to make the parent. I want to use this record to communicate out to these clients, and when the outage is resolved, I would like to communicate and close them all out. So I'll show you 2 ways to do this. I have to admit, I always love showing people the wrong way to do things first. Will you permit me to do that first? Excellent. So I am going to copy the incident number. And I know that this is my parent. I could triage things as they come in the door. For example, if I had a request, I can convert it, and I could have that incident, the parent incident number handy, and I could assign it to each thing that comes in the door. So that might actually be a very practical way to go about that. So let's assume I'm doing that. I get this report from a client, this particular incident. I look at it, say, yep, that's related. I have the ability to reply to this individual client. I can say, hi, Jake, we're aware of it, answer a couple questions, and then link them to the parent for future communication. Does that make sense? So I'll say, we'll send an update before 5 o'clock. So if I scroll in here, you'll see I have a tab hidden here. This is not present on requests. I have a tab for related records. Any incident could become a parent if you add related records. So I'll go in here. I can search if I want to look for it, but I find it's easier just to have the incident, the parent incident number memorized or copied, and I can add it here. Everyone okay with that? So by adding this information here, I have linked this child to a parent. And I'll click Update. Awesome. So now here you can clearly see that this incident is a child of this one. That was a lie, by the way. Sorry. In this form, in this field, you actually cannot see the parent-child relationship. Okay? For those who love databases, I'll just point out that the task table is pulling from multiple sources, and it only shows fields that are common amongst various things. So because it's showing tasks, incidents, and requests, it doesn't show the parent field. Does that make sense? So that's a limitation of the My Work filter. So you say, Jake, how do we solve this? If you go back and take a look at My Group's incidents, when you click on this, it's going to show all of your incidents, but it has a new and very important field. It's that of parent incident. So the test for you guys is to realize if you're never going to use parent incident functionality, it's a moot point. It's an academic exercise. If you ever use this, it's absolutely critical that you understand if something is a parent or has a parent. That makes sense? So I want to pause on that point. You never want to work an incident if your group is using parent incident functionality and you don't know if it's a parent or not. Okay, good. I want to belabor that point. So in here, it's a little bit harder to find things because I have a lot of people in my assignment group. So you'll notice other things have popped in here from other people, which is OK. I'm going to show you a little trick. If I scroll down and find myself, so again, this U by T staff group is huge. There's a lot of garbage in here. You can filter based on any cell within here. So for example, if I right-click on my name, I can do a real-time filter of the entire database and only show entries matching me. It's one of my favorite tricks. So now I'm looking at all assignment groups, all of my assignment groups, active incidents assigned to me, and with any luck, I should find my parent and my outage 1 and 2. Do I see 1 and 2? I have on Wednesday. Did I assign it to me? Here, let's try something else. I'll go back, sort on number, and there it is. I might have forgotten to assign it to me. Sometimes I do that. Did I? Oh, I know what I did. Yeah. Hold on, I'll find it, I promise. So I didn't put in the assignment group, and it went into the service center. Don't do what I just did. Hold on. I always forget that. Huh. Come on, Jake. 1, 2, and Wednesday. Okay, here it is. I just lost it for a second there. Again, it can go into the service center if you don't set an assignment group, and I made a small mistake there. Although it is here now, so I don't know. Anyhow, okay, so let's look at here. I've got an outage report, and I see a parent incident, and you can see here that this number is the same. That plus the fact that I used the word parent helps me to indicate that it's a parent incident. Does that sound okay? So you can forget I had that little miscue, and we'll go back here. I think, Brian, you originally asked this question, how do I update multiple incidents to associate a parent with them, right? Let's assume I have a long list of incidents that are all related, and I wish to link them all to one parent. I could actually click in here in the parent field and add the information and update that, and that will then link them. That make sense?
It would be more for user experience if children are all folded under the parent.
Yeah, it's just the database view of it. So yeah, so there's no way to tell other than that. When you click on this parent, there's also no flag saying, hey, you're about to communicate with 700 people. You just have to know that it's the parent. Yeah.
So earlier you said if your group is going to use parent instance. I'm wondering if your group really has a decision or not.
Oh.
Because often these things cross services. The authentication service has a problem. Pretty much all of the services are going to have problems. And there may be a parent instance for the authentication service.
Yeah.
Child incidents for all the other services.
That's a great point. I think that's something I shouldn't have just kind of glossed over. I might have an incident in my list, and I should note that there's a parent for it because the service center may be communicating out through my incidents as well. Someone else may have recognized that they're related. I would be a little bit annoyed if they then closed my incident out, but they may just be communicating out through it too. So I don't know until that actually happens how it's going to work. That should be a really fun day. Often my incidents are isolated because I support third-party vendors, and they have an outage. And I might get a bunch of complaints, and the service center doesn't care about my outage because it's not our network. So it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out. This is really a nice functionality, and I'm not looking for that first day, not looking forward to that first day we test it out. Yeah. Because that means something bad happened, right? So I'll just point out, and if you have any list view open right now, you can also practice along here. I was reminded that it depends on your keyboard or your operating system, but holding Windows and Shift would allow me to highlight down multiple cells, and then double-clicking allows me to update 5 rows at once. Okay? And again, just because I love to be redundant, Control and Shift allows me to select non-contiguous cells and update them as well. Everyone okay with that? All right. So let's go in here. I don't expect you to trust me, so I'm going to show you how this works. Again, I'll give you a break in just a minute. I'm going to go into my parent. I'm going to go to my notes and send out additional comments. Here is an update. And then I also have the ability to push out work notes to all of the related incidents, all the child incidents, so I could communicate with the help desk staff. Now you say, well, I'm a little bit worried. I'm going to communicate with a bunch of people. How do I know which ones? If I scroll down here to the very bottom, I have a tab that does list all of the child incidents when I'm working the parent. But you have to go all the way down to the bottom to see it. That's why I like labeling at the parent so you don't make a mistake. I'll click Update, and I just communicated out to 2 tickets, 2 incident reports. I'll go in here just for fun, because I don't expect you to trust me. If I look in the log, I can see both the work notes updated from the parent and the update sent out to all my clients. I can then click on the parent, say incident now resolved. I will go in and mark it resolved. I will put in my required closure information. Solved permanently. The incident process owner requires that we put in close notes, and I can hit update. If I click resolve, I'd stay here. If I click update, it'll take me back. Yeah.
Is there any policy around the hierarchy, how deep this can be?
You can only go 1 level deep. You can't have child of child. There's one parent. It shouldn't behave that way. I love to test it out. It's not supposed to be allowed. So if you're
2 levels.
You're not supposed to be able to create 2 levels, so I wouldn't rely on that functionality. Once someone realizes that that's a bug, they'll take it away. That's a great thing to point out, though. Thank you. We should make note of that, William, because they only want 1 level deep. Other questions about that? So I'm going to click resolve or update. Back in my list, those are gone because my filter is only showing things that are not resolved. Yep.
Do you know why they only want 1 deep?
No.
It seems like these cross-service.
It's a great question. That's beyond my pay scale. Yeah.
Take it up with
The incident, yeah, incident manager or process. That's why we have process owners. You can complain to Mike Houlihan if you don't like the way it works. You can talk to Mike Houlihan and get it changed. So
you can create a request to the
yes,
incident manager.
yes, you can make a request of the incident management team that get changed. I'll make another note. Be a little bit careful. Remember how I said you can't close out requests or incidents that have open tasks? If you try to cascade close a whole bunch of incidents, it's not going to close those that have open incident tasks. It'll throw an error, and it will close all of the other ones down. So then whoever is owning those individual child incidents with tasks open will have to close out the tasks and resolve those incidents. That make sense? It's a small caveat. You could also show in here a field that says has child or has task, yes or no. You can even see all of your incidents that are linked that have open incident tasks. That make sense? So there's some additional functionality built in here. All right, I sense fatigue. We're going to take a 10-minute break and close out with a bunch of fun stuff. You can rest assured, though, that you've learned almost everything you need to know to survive. Okay? So we'll come back in 10 minutes. What time will that be? 17? All right. 11:17. Any other questions? I didn't tell you guys much about knowledge. And for those who use RTFM or other knowledge sources, it's relatively important. So, wiki integration. So all of our RTFM content's been ported over, all of our helpmon guides, and our SharePoint routers ref. There's no wiki integration, so the expectation is that you would create new help content, new knowledge content from yours.
So this is creating yet another island of information like you already have.
My team is going to use this as the only island of information. That would be.
As an employee, I mean, you have so many wiki and SharePoint.
Again, what I've been told is to not maintain these other knowledge sources and to make this the place to put our stuff. But yes, for some people, it'll be yet another island. I'll fully admit that. Yeah. The upside of putting it here is that you are sharing it with all of your UWIT employee cohort. So this is searchable by everyone. So that's why there's an expectation. So all you need to do is from a request or a request task, incident task, or a problem, you can click on this little book icon next to the short description. It's right there. If you hover, it says Search Knowledge. What it does by default is kind of interesting. It takes whatever was in the short description and runs a search against it. So you can click on any record and click on the book icon next to the short description, and you'll be where I am right now. Click on book. It's going to do that search. You might find that that search is not so useful. So what I might do instead is type in a different term and run my search. And that allows me then to search the knowledge base with this pop-up window. You notice I can see times it's been used. So one thing about the knowledge base, it also gives us some metrics on how useful particular articles are. And we also have a feedback mechanism. So I'll point out that you have, yeah.
Can you use and or in the terms like catalyst?
Yeah, you can do all kinds of searches, and the categories are not. If you go in, there's an advanced search, and there's also search keys. You can use wildcard searches. A star search is going to be your friend. That's a nice, useful wildcard, and also a percent search. But a star search is actually going to be a multiple character substitution, so you can do really broad searches in the system. If you run into problems, try star search. I just want to point out how the wiki, you got me thinking about wikis, how the knowledge base or the KB works. You guys familiar with the infamous Microsoft KB articles, right? You never get help, you just go look in their knowledge base. What you can do is one of two things. I can highlight content and copy it if I just want to throw the text into an answer for a customer. This would be what you do is if you have really super long, complicated knowledge base articles and just want to give the customer a snippet of information, correct? There may be teams, though, that instead have small, precise snippets of information, and I would wish to put this into the customer comment directly, all of this information. So what I've done now, I'll show you both options. I've copied the text, and I'm also then going to click on this Attach to Incident. By attaching it, it's going to send this text to the customer comments and also make note that it's been used. So there's additional functionality hidden in there. All right, if you scroll down to my notes, you'll see something here. Anyone love HTML? If you love HTML, you'll love this. It's showing you the actual code and how it will be rendered. You're going to have to trust the system that it'll actually work. Again, I wouldn't practice on a Dean, but you know, if this will actually send it out as it was described. The other option, I'm just going to show you within here. I'm going to paste. You just paste the plain text from the knowledge base article, but I've lost my bolding and my formatting. You can do it either way. I just want you to be aware of the difference. I'm going to update this record. I'll click Save and just show you what happened. Down here, it is interesting in that when you look, it does show the source of the answer. So by clicking on Attach, it actually logs in this particular article that the knowledge base was used. So I didn't just make up the answer. The knowledge base was used. It's got the formatted text based on the HTML formatting, and down below was the pasted text directly from the knowledge base. So have fun with that experiment. Right now we have these sources imported. You can create new knowledge. So you can go to the knowledge base and create new and build to your heart's content. We don't have the knowledge workflow matured yet. So right now, that man in the back is charged with fixing it up. So they need to get approved and put in the workflow to be promoted and searchable. The bottom line is, after it goes into the workflow, the service manager needs to approve them before they get published. Does that make sense? You would associate knowledge with a configuration item, and the service manager will have to approve them, or some sort of mystical approver group. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a way to import, like if you already have quite a bit of information?
Most certainly is. I don't know if you can't do it. So we have imported a tremendous amount of information from our existing sources, and Joby can do it. So if you have a large amount of information, it certainly would be worth a conversation to figure out if your content can be imported. Yeah.
Question?
Yeah.
So is there a way to go back from the knowledge base to the incidents to see which all requests or incidents are referring to the knowledge base?
When you go into that article, it actually shows all of the incidents and requests that has been used in every time the attach button has been clicked. But if you just copy and paste the text, you don't get that link. So that is a measure of how useful something is. And there's also feedback. So we can all go in and say, it says, was this helpful? You could say no. And so what people can do is go through the knowledge base and find things that people have marked not useful and go fix them. So this is a vast improvement over our current knowledge, which is just an article that may or may not be correct. So there is that feedback. And also, as you close things out, I'll just show you briefly in here. I'm going to note that on the closure information of any incident or request, I can select the knowledge box, and that will also push this answer into the knowledge workflow, and it can be edited and saved as future knowledge. So instead of taking this answer and making a new RTFM or something, I check that box, and bam. Just a caution, Joby noted that way too much information goes into the knowledge article, so you're still going to have to clean it up. But at least you can flag it and put it into the knowledge workflow for future use. So it's still knowledge light, but it's much better workflow. You don't want to reinvent the wheel here. Everyone okay with that? Yeah. 2 questions. I saw your hand first.
How do you connect knowledge base with the Confluence and all the stuff?
You would have to go into Confluence and copy the text and paste it into a new knowledge article. There's no current link.
No link.
No link.
I mean, you can't, but there's a, when you click the book icon, you can actually search Google. I mean, if you use Google search, what was that? Here, you click that one.
Yeah.
That basically you can search the knowledge base or Google or Microsoft. All the
So you want to just put your wiki in there? That's a great question. That's a great question for Joby. So you can always email help at you and ask how to get additional sources put in there.
Yeah.
That seems like it's a configuration option.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Great question. Yeah, over here.
Again, this is something I'm inside the knowledge base article. I'm here at the bottom to add this to.
To attach? Did you go in from an incident?
Yes.
Is the incident open? I've never seen that happen.
It's active.
Active, yep. And then you go into it and you don't see the edit or attach in there. right up here at the top of the.
I see edit article, but not attach.
Yeah, that's an interesting bug. I've never seen it happen before. We'll have to trust that it'll not persist. Does that sound okay? Do you see? Is he doing anything different there, William? Yeah. I've never seen that happen where the attach button didn't go in. This is the one I just clicked on right here. Is an interesting example, though. You notice I have a wickedly long article with a table and link structure. If I wanted to send a client a really cool long answer with this particular structure, it might be useful to attach, as opposed to but this might be overkill. You guys able to solve it? We'll have to work on it later. I've never seen it happen before. We'll trust that it won't hamper your work. All right. Let's go through here. I want to make sure I haven't skipped anything important. Okay. Make sure I didn't skip anything here. No. Okay. A little bit about problem management. Okay. Again, the goal of incident management is to restore service and close out incidents. By creating a problem record, we can have this persistent record that engineers can investigate in the future. You know, maybe it's a network upgrade, hardware upgrade in the future, right? And so you don't have to worry about losing that information. You can create problems from scratch. I can go to the problem application and create new. I think the more useful workflow would be to have an incident and say, yep, I'm going to resolve this incident, but I want to turn this information into problem for future investigation. Does that make sense? The funny thing is, the more I think about this, the more I want to use problem for other issues I have ongoing with our systems. And also, if you want to figure out how to work problem better, you can work with the problem managers and problem process owners. So let's go in. If you guys could, yeah.
Is there any thought to the fact that we may have had past instances that aren't in service now, that we would like to somehow reflect the problem?
I would love to have all of my RT records imported. I think that would be awesome, but not to my knowledge. You could create a new problem and refer to other records, RT. RT will still be here.
You could create a placeholder instance.
Yeah. Yeah, you can put in a new incident, or you can make a problem and in your work notes list all the RT numbers it refers to. We can always go back to RT as a historical record and search it. It's not going to go away anytime soon. We can still look at all of our old data, but we can't import old incidents. It's a great question, though. So let's go in and make a quick problem. Let's cause some trouble here. I'm going to go into this particular incident. The incident doesn't really matter, so if you just go into my group's incidents and grab something, it should be fine. Just keep in mind that you can only create one problem from an incident. So if two of you grab the same incident, only one's going to be able to create the problem. Does that make sense? So grab your incident if at all possible. When you right-click on the gold bar, point out a couple things you can do. One of those is convert it to a request. So if it's not really an incident, you can convert it back. This one does not have the convert to problem, and that's probably because Peter has already done it. Related records, yeah. I grabbed someone else's, and he already turned this one into a problem, so I'll go back and fix that. My work, my incidents, right-click, and I can create problem. Note it doesn't say convert to problem. In this particular example, let's say I'm working the incident, and I want to continue working it and then resolve it. I'm just going to take this information and create a problem from it. Make sense? Okay. We no longer get to steal things. You guys, how many people love to click on the steal button in RT? It felt mildly illicit. Well, all we get to do now is we get to create a problem. That's about the only other fun we get. So you can create a problem from an incident. Is everyone able to find an incident from which you can create a problem? Great. So here it says problem created. A lot of this information is going to be redundant from what you've done before. You notice I can create problem tasks for engineers to work on. I have no ability to communicate to a client here, which is a great thing. You don't want to. This is a problem for us. We do have a specific field for workarounds, right? So if you're a service manager, you want to let people know, hey, we're tracking this particular problem. You know, I want you to log incidents against this problem, and the workaround is noted. So that would be a common scenario where a service manager might do that. Down here, I've got the description and other information from the incident that has been carried over into the log. So if you already did some troubleshooting on that incident, all that critical information can be brought into the problem, which is why I created it from an incident. And then at the very bottom here, there's an incident tab. This shows us all of the incidents that are listed or linked to this problem. So if you have an ongoing problem for years, you could track incidents over time and link them here. That make sense? So at the very bottom here, I have the, here, I'm going to save this for fun. Save my problem. Of course, assignment group. The reason why that this is not auto-assigned, it's usually assumed that an engineering group or a different assignment group would actually track problems, not your tier one group. I'll just throw something in there and save it. Here I can see the incident, and I also have the ability to be careful with this new button. When you're looking at this bottom list of incidents, if I click on new, it'll literally create a new incident. If I want to add incidents to this list, what I really want to do is edit the list. Does that make sense?
Will those new incidents be tagged as a problem?
Yeah, you would create a new incident under here, but it's not what, in this instance, I want to find other incidents, so I want to click edit, and that's not entirely intuitive. So I just wanted to point that out. If I click edit, I could go in here and find incidents. Based on incident number, I can add them. Additionally, if I know an incident, I can type it in, or I can go to that incident itself and add in the problem record. So I'll go back. I've got a problem number. And if I go to any other incident that I'm tracking, I can place this problem number in the related records field of that incident to link it. So I like to reinforce this. I'll go down, grab an incident, and I'll steal it from Ashley here. Look at my related records and link it. And put the problem in here, and that will create that linkage between the two. Make sense? So I could have hundreds of incidents, and that might give me an indication that the problem is one worth working on. Any questions about problem?
So when I tried to attach an assignment group, I found the group I wanted to attach to, and then when I chose update, I get a match not found, reset to original, or the configuration item.
Yeah, I got the same error. I don't know what happened there.
Okay.
It's a great bug. I don't know. I ignored it though. I didn't point it out. I thought I'll just talk through it, and I thought it would go away, but probably not. So I don't know what happened there, I'll have to admit. I'm going to save this particular incident record just for fun and point out that if you're looking at an incident and there is a related problem, I can click on this tab or this little icon to go directly to the problem. That make sense? So this little tab has two functions. One is if I hover over it, it will actually show me the problem it's been linked to. If I click, that should take me to the problem itself. Woo, there we go, problem. And I'm not sure what happened with the error you got with your configuration item. I had the same thing happen to me. I'm not sure what's going on. Let's see if I can fix it. Yeah, the same thing's happening to me, so it seems like a bug. We'll get all that fixed. So any questions before we move on from problem? Not a whole lot of folks are expected to be using this right away, but it is important functionality, and it's a way that we expect to grow as an organization. So check it out and think about it. It's worth it. OK, home pages. We have 25 minutes. You guys still awake? Going strong? I know this is a lot of information. By default, we have a home page made for you. If you like it, you're fine. Now, one of the downsides of your default homepage is that it lumps all of the work from all of your groups in one bucket. And a lot of folks are used to working individual services at a time, correct? We go into one queue at a time. If you want to do that, you can, but you'd have to create a custom homepage. That make sense? So I'm going to show you how to make a custom homepage that has all of the work from one group. That sound like a realistic scenario, just for fun? And then you can decide how you want to do it in the future. OK, back home. We're all looking at homepage, correct? I can just start editing this homepage if I wish, and that's not a half bad idea. For example, having my work at the top of the homepage is probably a good convention. I'll always see the stuff that's been assigned to me. I may decide, though, that I want to get rid of these other things, so I can click on this little X and make anything I want go away. You guys all see that? So I can delete my group's incidents, requests, and tasks. It's a little bit hard to see on my screen, I apologize. What I've done here is just make a page that only has my work on it. You guys able to do something similar?
Can I, the home page, can I have all of my filters, the contents of?
Yep, I'll show you how to do that. Yep. So you can put a lot of things on home pages. Most of them are not useful, but filters are most certainly the ones. Okay. So is everyone able to kind of pare this down to a home page that just has my stuff? If you guys could all, you'll notice here, refresh by default is off. You can set that to a different interval so that it automatically refreshes what you're seeing. And if you click on refresh, it literally refreshes your screen. Could you all click on refresh for me? And then we're going to change the name. That little refresh is required for the name to stick. I've found that if I just try to change the name without a refresh, it goes away. So I'm going to call it, for me, I'll call it one service. And you could choose a specific service if you want, or one assignment group. How about that? And then, is everyone able to edit something and change the name? I'll just note that over here, in the upper right-hand side, I have my default home pages, and I have this new one I've made right here. So every home page you make should be in your own personal list. Everyone get kind of caught up? You've got your home page. In theory, you can also have a common home page amongst all the members of your group. The only way to do that would be to create a home page and ask Joby Walker to promote that and make it available to your group. I don't have a process for that just yet, but I know that it is possible at least. Are you guys okay deleting stuff?
She does the refresh. Just brings back all things that I removed.
Okay.
Remove it.
And then, well, here, click on there, and then try refresh. That's really weird. Can you switch the page? Yeah, it made a version. Well, that's weird. So if you can click on any of those, and then you can edit that one.
Okay.
That's odd that it made 17 my home pages. Yeah, be careful. If you just keep making more pages, it'll call all of them my home page. Hopefully you can change the name now. Can you delete it? And okay, good. Okay. Phew. All right. Has everyone been able to make a my home page? That's great. So I've got a home page called My Service. I'll note that whenever I click on the UW Connect logo, it's going to take me back to this page. But if I wish to go back to the default, I can do so still. All right. Let's go back to another filter we haven't touched on yet, and that is unassigned work. This filter, it's a little bit hard to see here. I'm going to drop down, and this is a great way to test your knowledge of the system. I am filtering from the task table, which will show all incidents, requests, problems, and tasks. And it's showing all of them that are active, where the assigned to is empty. So if you're in one of those groups that doesn't want to see the other things that people are working on, you can keep that filter there. I personally like to see everything, even if someone else in my group has it. That make sense? So you can leave assigned to is empty if you wish, or you could delete that variable. I'm going to delete it. And then by default, it's saying assignment group is dynamic, which makes it one of my groups. So that's why you see this long list of groups that it's pulling from. Instead of is dynamic, I could also just choose is and choose a specific group. So for example, for me, this particular group would be a single service. And if I save this filter, it would show all of the incidents and requests and tasks and problems, if you use it, for that one assignment group. This would be kind of like one queue. That sound okay? All right. Now, as you might guess, all right, I can run it just to double check it. I could save this to my power bar, but in order to use it on a custom home page, you need to save the filter. Okay? Now, probably the 17th time I've said this today, note that the filter is made against the task table. That's going to come into play here. I'm going to save it. I'm going to call it Catalyst because that matters to me. How about I just call it delete so I remember to delete it later. Okay, I can save it for me or a group. I'll just save it for me. And I'll go home. Is everybody able to save this filter? Save a filter? All right. Let's go back to our One Service homepage. Click. Yeah.
Questions. This Amazon War, all these tickets, is there any way to see actually the time when they get here?
Yeah. So you can filter. You can add columns. You can have the column created, last updated. There are like a million columns you can add if you really want to. You're just seeing the defaults right now. I'll just note that if you add columns to one of your tables, it's going to affect all views of that table. Does that make sense? So if you're customizing it system-wide for yourself. All right, I'm back on my home page. I would like to add that custom filter to this page. I'm going to click on Add Content. And don't put a lot of work into this filter. It's not going to end up in production, right? We still have to redo all of our work later. We'll consider it good practice. When I click on the Add Content box, I have my first pane here. I'd like for you to scroll to the very bottom and find filters. You'll see a lot of things in here, and pretty much all of them are useless except for filters. I'll make that acknowledgement freely. I don't know why filters isn't at the top, but that's just my 2 cents. I have filters. I can make filters in a lot of different places, and I'm going to choose task because the filter I made was against the task table. And then I have all the filters I've made, including this one that says delete 333. Then we're able to find the filter they just saved. That will give me a real-time view of my filter in this window. And at the bottom, I can choose where to put it. In this particular instance, I've got my work at the top. So I'm going to click this button down here to add all of this below my work. Does that make sense? You can also drag and drop to move content around. Yeah, 2 questions.
What are the catalog global and
Those are what show up if you were to go in a mobile device. They show up anyway, so you could actually just put in that version right now if you wish. I just use the default. I never use those. But that's what you're seeing. So you can have a different view of it if you wish. I haven't explored them fully, though, I have to admit. Your question.
That was my
Yeah, experiment with it. I've always just chosen the main one. So I'm going to add it down here, close out this window, and see the fruits of my labor. So right now, when I go to my home page, I see my work, and then I see all of the open records from this particular assignment group, which would be kind of like an RT queue. So now you have the choice of looking at all of your records split up based on type, or all of your records based on an assignment group, or you could have all of your groups in here if you wish. So you have full control. Chance. Oh, okay, good. So by default, everything's split up into the record type. I just want to give you the power to glob them all back together if you want to. All right. Phew, we're on the home stretch here. How many people are excited about reporting? Chance, you have to raise your hand. I know that. You've got to be excited about this. Okay. I'm excited about this. I used to get nagged by my director, who's now somewhere else, but every week he'd want updated stats from me. How many tickets do we have? What have we done? I don't have to do that ever again. This is a really cool functionality. I shouldn't make that proclamation, but I will be so bold. I'll ask you all to click on the Application Navigator and Reports down here at the bottom. A bunch of stuff you can do, but click on View Run with me. I'm going to do a quick scroll, but don't get dizzy here. It is a long scroll of all the built-in reports that you can click on. On the left-hand side, you're seeing global reports. On the right-hand side, you are seeing my reports and my group reports. And if you haven't done much in here, you shouldn't see much over here in my reports, correct? Now, just I want to talk a little bit about workflow. If you were to grab a canned report and edit it, it will then show up in my reports. If you were then to share that report with your group, it would show up down here as well. And the caveat, of course, is anything shared with your group is editable and deletable by your group. So if you're really paranoid, you would save something for yourself and save a copy for your group. Does that sound reasonable? All right. I would like for all of you to start off by going down to Group Reports and click on, you can see people playing around here already, darn. Click on My Group Records in Last 2 Months. This is a report that I made and I like. This is more or less the report that my boss used to pester me for weekly. What this is showing is a week-by-week count of all the records on all of my assignment groups for the last 2 months, broken down based on which assignment group they're in. And this is real-time data, and perhaps most importantly, it's clickable. So if I click on any portion of this column, it will actually take me to the database filter that created that data source. It was kind of fun. If I click back, it'll take me back to my filter. Does that seem useful, potentially? If anyone would like a copy of this for themselves, I'll tell you how to do this. Take this filter that you see, this report, and you can see how it was built. I just went into a generic report and added these columns and these defaults. Simple, of course. It took me like 2 hours to figure it out, though.
I appreciate that because I've got the other people
it's a lot, and it's a place where we really can grow. I know just enough to make this report is essentially all I know, but I'm hoping that you guys will learn more and then tell me, because yeah. So if you want a copy of this for yourself, just like I said, if I went in and deleted all these columns, I would delete it for everyone. It's a group report. If I edit it for everyone. And the reason why everyone can see it, oh, this is kind of a lie. This is one I made for me and Cynthia. If you clicked on one, you're likely seeing one that says UW IT staff as the group it's shared with. What you can do with any of these group reports is click on me. So right now, I've taken this group report and I've made it only visible to me. But I haven't yet saved it. Okay, I haven't screwed it up just yet. So I've made it only visible to me. I can also give it a new name. I'll give it a new name here, like delete. And remember that ServiceNow-ism I taught you? The insert button would create a copy of this report. Save would actually save the original report and overwrite it. Insert will make a copy of this report. What?
Why not just vote?
I agree. Yeah. I don't know. The number of things I've had to learn with this system is pretty crazy. So now I've taken that group report and stuck it into my reports here. And similarly, if you make your own report that you really like and want to change and share with someone, you can go into that report, make it visible to the group, and insert it. And that would make a copy for the group. That would be the workflow.
So how customizable is this platform? For example, for UW, we decided to rename insert as copy.
It's very, very customizable. But what ends up happening is that we have to log all the customizations we've ever made against it. And we're going to upgrade in the fall to a new, cool version of it. And they're going to have to make sure all of our customizations work, which is not a fun task for overworked engineers. So they've decided to not rename things like insert, because that's system-wide. Everywhere you look, copy is actually called insert. They would have to go and make sure that all of our customizations worked, and we're loath to do that. So instead, we're asking you to learn something new. Is that okay? It is what we call a ServiceNow-ism, that the company invented some of this nomenclature, I imagine, and we have to kind of live with it.
So, I'm playing with the reports. Is it true that you really can't go across sort of the record types?
So this report is filtering against the task table, so it is showing all the record types. I could run the same report against the request table and only show requests.
So if I wanted the report to show a breakdown of instance, problems, requests for a specific service by the person who's assigned to it.
I bet you could do it, but it sounds complicated. Yeah. Because I have time as that element I showed you there. That could be based on person. You can play with those parameters. I just felt like I really wanted to understand reports well enough to make something cool. That's all I cared about. As an instructional technologist, all I have to figure out is how to do one cool thing. and then I don't do any more. I thought if I start you here, you could go in and change these parameters and see what you can do. Other things that are kind of weird, there's this concept of an other threshold. That determines how many columns are displayed before everything gets lumped into an other. So there are funny little things in here you have to learn. Sounds like a great advanced workshop topic and not a time for today when people are already fatigued. But definitely come in here and play around. I actually found it to be, once I got to this point, I found it to be very rewarding. That's why I want you to start from this particular one and not from scratch. The only thing I'll point out on that note is that the way I got started, I scrolled all the way down. I went through so many of these, it's actually kind of sad. I went to task, which again looks for everything because it's a task table, and I chose my group's work and started clicking and playing. So I didn't read the manual. Okay, you guys understand a lot about home pages, advanced filtering, and reports. With any luck, as much as you need to know. Let's go into production. You guys feel ready? 3 hours. You feel ready to go into production? All right. All you have to do is change your URL to delete eval. So I'm just deleting eval from my URL. Don't forget, eval will always be there for you. So if when we're in production you want to go experiment with something and go fire off a whole bunch of incidents and practice, you can always do that. But let's not create a lot of dummy data here in production. And you'll notice I taught you how to click on the gold bar over and over and over. Now it's blue. Or at least it should be. Here we are. You should have much less to do. You notice I wanted to see what happens when something's been set for awaiting user info for 5 days, so I actually made a dummy request there. Don't do a lot of that. We should have pristine data in here. Let's all click on our names. So you can see your name there, welcome. And again, nothing you've made in eval is going to carry over. So if you want to make filters and reports and stuff, you can do that now. You can update your contact information. If you're going to be using on-call mechanisms, here's where you would double check to make sure your information is correct. And I would ask that you all click on your notification preferences right here. In here, you have the ability to tweak what happens. I'll leave it to you to decide. What I end up doing is if I get too much communication, I'll come in here and pare it back. And what I'd like you to do is first click on your primary email. And I'll go in there. I just want to point out that if you select this on-call method box, that will be a way for people to actually ping you via the on-call escalation. So if you do that and someone chooses you as an on-call target, it would actually start emailing you. Does that make sense? That's how you enable that functionality if you want to try it. I'm going to go up in the top right and click on New Device. If you come in here for New Device, you can select the type of SMS Plus. For the eval version, I put in my phone provider and my number. And by doing that, that's how I actually started getting texts when I was being contacted via on-call. So you can put in additional contact information in here. Just keep in mind, it's a blast. So when you're notified via on-call, it's going to go to all of your devices at once. And if you're using the text, it's actually going to send the short description via text, which can be a little bit jarring. Everyone okay with that? So come on in here and check it out. This is where we're going to go after the cutover date. One thing to note, you may have heard this phrase already, but everything born in RT will die in RT. Everyone heard that? So if you have any records, any tickets in RT, you have to work them and resolve them in RT. And so many of us are going to have to be working in 2 systems at once, and that's less than ideal, but we acknowledge that. Any questions?
How do you go to the page?
I clicked on my name and then notification preferences. You should have a notification preferences, yeah. And then the other thing I don't want to forget here, Up in the top right, do you all see that little question mark for help? I've been kind of trained over the years to ignore help buttons. Now that I've been working long and hard with the folks who built this help documentation, I feel obligated to advertise it. So all this stuff has been put in here specifically for you. It's not perfect yet, but it is tailored to our environment. And so if you want to learn about processes, mapping RT terms, there's a lot of really useful information in here. At the bottom is where I'm going to put links to training videos. So you don't have, some people are already talking about attending a second class. That sounds really painful to me. I would come back and watch a video as opposed to attending a second 3-hour class with me. There's plenty of room. You're welcome to come back again if you want. I'll be here all week. All right. Last, while you guys have no more energy left, the question is, what will our customers see? We've been talking a little bit about improving transparency and communication. Every time someone gets communication from us, they're going to receive a link to come back to our IT Connect portal. They're never going to hear UW Connect. They don't even know it exists, and they don't care. They're going to have a link to come back to our IT Connect portal, and there's a service requests page, or my requests, and this is going to show all of their open or active requests. It'll also show when things are resolved. That make sense? So this is a nice, pretty, customer-facing element to our operation. A lot of companies actually have the customer go into ServiceNow to interact with us, and that's a very ugly experience. So we designed this. If this doesn't work, it's our fault. If you were to click on one of these particular records, you'll notice it just calls them all My Requests. In here, it's a little bit hard to see, but I can see the status. Here is the description. I just want to verify with you. This description is going to be the most updated version of the description, not the original. So if you edit the description, it'll always be visible to the customer here. The entire history of the communication, as well as a button to respond to us. They could always reply to the email to communicate with us, but they can also come into the portal and hit submit to talk back to us.
For those, I realize you're only posting a link on that page, but is there any, can anybody see any ticket?
Anyone can see any ticket upon which they are a caller or that they are listed on the customer visible communication list, whatever you call that.
Okay.
But not every ticket, no. Yeah. So if you are a customer on any record, so yeah, then you can see the portal. Yes, we are customers of each other. So if you ask another UW IT unit for help and you're a caller on any record, you're going to see that here in the portal. Does that make sense? So you can go in here and check it out.
Does it understand groups?
It does not understand groups. But if you add a group to the, well, yeah, actually, if you add a group to the customer visible watch list, it understands that. Or you can use a group, I believe, yeah. Does it understand groups like that? I know they all get the email. The question is, can every member of that group log in here? I don't know that answer. But I know if you add a group or a distribution list, they'll all get the updates. That's a great question. I don't know if it understands group.
Are you going to add a FAQ? Questions like this?
There are tips and tricks in there. So yeah.
No specific questions.
Right now, that would be a more advanced, like go here instead of asking us a question. The goal with our knowledge base would be ultimately to designate some of our knowledge as public, so they can go in and search our own knowledge base. That's what Microsoft does, of course, because they don't want you to call them. We aren't doing that just yet. But that is part of our future. Yeah.
You had a long list of.
And you didn't, right?
Yes.
I don't recall if I clicked on a bunch of things or if something was different for me. It's really hard for me to reset my account to look like yours, so I don't recall what I did, I have to admit. You can add new things, and I was experimenting.
I can see you can add new things, but what are those linked to?
I know. That whole thing mystifies me. I don't understand how to add new preferences, I have to admit. Yeah. The number of things, this is the most advanced thing I've ever had to use, and I love it. So a couple different things. Dates. Some teams are going to be using this for automated systems and monitoring on the 25th. They'll be using both RT and ServiceNow. July 8th for most of us. July 15th for CTE. We'll have a lot of stuff online. And please, schedule meetings with your service teams and go through some process testing and experiment while you still can. Any questions? Yeah?
So can we start getting to the production system right now?
You have access, but you shouldn't be making a lot of dummy data. This is meant to be our definitive production system. So dummy data, keep that in eval. But you go make your filters and start building up a homepage in production, by all means. Get going, yeah. Other questions? You guys have been troopers. I'll stay here if I have more questions. Want to let everyone get out of here and have lunch.